Hi, Lane.
Hi.
We're just doing some with the whole in-person slash remote. We're trying to coordinate everything.
All right.
We should be going though in just a minute. And if folks could mute themselves, I'm going to be kind of in-person slash managing this at the same time slash monitoring YouTube. It's going to make it a little bit difficult for me to try to manage like all the muting stuff. So if folks could just try to mute themselves, it would be appreciated.
On this paper, this is real estate taxes, right?
Yeah, and then on the second page, it's.
You've got a list of what, maybe 10 people,
I do, that's the
So
last
you've got down
page, I've
here.
got the full list.
total for 90 bills.
Yep, so the full list is right here. Starting,
These are all in arrears.
that's correct.
So what's the issue with the property, the real property taxes?
Real estate taxes.
The real-
No, but what's the issue with them? I mean, this is,
That's what needs to be recommitted to her.
Right, so that I can go ahead
This
and start the lien.
oh, I thought we did recommit all the taxes to you except for these personal properties.
Okay, so, but without, we didn't have what we needed.
I'm not trying to give you a hard time, I'm just trying to understand where we
No,
are.
I understand, so we didn't have the legal advice that we needed to go forward, we weren't sure what to do, because it wasn't so easy as printing out these documents, because there was a discrepancy, because the personal property that was uncollectible from 13 to 18 was included in the settlement.
So what does that have to do with deeds? I don't understand how this fits into the equation. The real estate.
So 2019's committed taxes, what remains of them is being recommitted to me to go and file liens on.
Okay, so these weren't recommitted. These,
They were, in theory, I'd have to go
Nothing.
back.
Nothing,
We haven't-
that's confusing.
Okay.
Nothing has been recommitted to her.
okay, now I was told that everything was recommitted.
Oh, by whom?
Oh, you said we've already recommitted to taxes at the last meeting.
Nope, possibly what I said was we're in the process of recommitting them. That was an agenda item and we had a lot of things teed up. So
So we
maybe
didn't vote to recommit.
No, we
Okay.
tabled it because of that discrepancy and trying to reconcile what needs to be written off for the personal
Okay.
property taxes.
Okay.
If I've miscommunicated that, sorry.
No,
But yeah, no, I mean, it was
I
on the
probably
agenda
misheard
and
you.
we had tabled it at a previous.
I probably misheard you.
So, in order to accelerate your departure, the action that we should take is recommit this and write this off.
And I would do that in exactly the opposite order.
Okay.
But yes.
Yep. But they're not mutually dependent.
No, because you're only recommitting 2019 to me.
So we could recommit these to you,
Yeah.
but table the personal property.
As long as it's clearly understood that I am not personally liable for collecting any of those taxes. Yes.
Well, since they haven't been recommitted to you, you wouldn't.
That's great. So the lawyer just wanted us to really shore that up.
So the idea is to put your responsibility very cleanly
Yes.
in the sweep up of 2019. Figure out how we deal with the 2013 to 2018 pass.
So these, all the taxes currently are with OA.
That's correct.
They're committed to me,
Right.
yet I am not your tax collector anymore.
Right, but the tax collector's duty is extend beyond their termination.
To the, yeah, just to the lien process, and then it becomes the
Well,
treasurer's.
the personal property. further.
I don't, and I,
You
it's not
turn
my
it over-
desire to go further with them, which is like,
Because
whatever.
with the lien problem, well, you could do lien on personal property too, but I don't know if you did.
It's not technically a lien, it's more of a civil action or practicing restraint, and which is not something that I don't like. feel like this town would not want to practice restraint.
Okay, I got it.
Answer to your earlier question, I would like to see Kristen's letter.
It wasn't Kristen, it was one of her colleagues, and let me go
Okay,
right
well,
now and
whatever.
print that off.
Thank you very much.
Here you go. I'll be right back, John.
We are live, sir.
So call us to order.
So ordered. Call it 6:07.
Meeting called to order at 6:07. Okay. First order of business is election of a new board chair. I'd like to nominate Walter Wright.
I'll second that.
I'll serve.
It's your meeting on. So we have a new chair.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Spear,
Discussion?
is there any discussion?
Thank you. I support Walter being chair, but I would like to see us at some point get back to our long-standing tradition of having the person who is in their final term be the chair. I think that system, which predated me being on the board, really worked well and took any angst, if you will, out of the beginning of every meeting at the town meeting. But I wasn't prepared to jump into that tonight, but I do think we should look forward to getting back to that perhaps a year from now. When you will be.
Right. It's, you mean the last year of the term or the last term?
No, the last year of the term. That's what the tradition. Now, you still have to vote on it, right, but it was a long-standing tradition here. I think Penny can attest it. Predated my initial involvement.
Well, they remember why that changed.
I don't, and I've been trying to find out.
Actually, you were the one that cut the straws. So you should remember.
I don't.
It was my first meeting as a new selectman.
Yeah.
When we had two other select persons on the board who would not second either one for the position. And you said the only way to do this is by straws, and we drew straws for the chair position.
But I was hoping that that would only be for that 1 year.
Well, it's what put it out of order. I ended up being the chairman my first year. And then held it for the first 3 years.
You know,
And
actually,
then shifted to
now
order.
that you've refreshed my memory, I do remember.
I think you would. It was quite a shock to me. But welcome aboard. So anyway, yeah, it's certainly up for discussion.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Spear,
Yes.
Wright,
Abstain.
Gaudio?
Yes.
That is 2 in favor, 1 abstention. Mr. Chair, I turn the meeting over to you.
Okay. I'm hoping that Chelsea will come back. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? First of all, congratulations, John.
Thank you.
Welcome. Owen, anything that you know of?
No, I mean, other than the additional communication that I provided in your supplemental packet, the transfer station treasurer kindly graced us with his presence today, so that was a bit of your supplemental information, but if you wanted to add a vote authorizing that, if the transfer station needs that immediately, then I would add that as a new business item.
This is the Gordon Collins analysis.
Negative. This is the transfer station's request for 23,000 and change, which is our share of the 103,000.
Okay.
Yep.
Done with it.
And dates for the mill rate setting.
We are penciled in for July the 21st, which is 1 week after the referendum on the school budget.
so let's put it under new business because there's some color that you want to cover on that.
So we have two items under new business now. One is a discussion about the commitment date and the other is a discussion and possible authorization of expenditure to the transfer station.
Okay, I want to reassert my thanks and congratulations to you and Phil and Chelsea for putting the town meeting on, and any helpers that you had. I thought great work, and having somewhere between 77 and 90 people there, and only one non-mask was a real thrill.
And I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for town staff, but I think we were all very appreciative of the citizenry and the respectful nature that they showed while having a good, robust discussion about some of these items. Couldn't have asked for kind of a better grouping of folks to move forward on town meeting with. It was good.
Is there public comment for items not on the agenda?
I would like to speak about the library events, but I'm willing to wait for department head if we want.
Okay. Is that okay with you? Unless you want to leave? Oh, no, we're going to appoint you to many offices, so you have to be around for that.
No, I'm happy with
Do people know that they can chat in?
Yes, and I'm not being at the desktop. I'm doing YouTube through the phone, so I don't have to keep toggling back and forth. In the reminder that I sent out to the electronic town listserv anyway today, I reminded folks that if they had public comment and they thought that the YouTube was clunky, please provide them beforehand. And then I reminded that they can do in comments, and I'll feed it to the board as appropriate.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
Would you confab with any of your peers that are doing Zoom only as to how they're handling the security issues? I have my own thoughts on that, but I'd like to hear if there are any best practices, because it makes for more interactive, and I think that this is probably a technique that's with us for a while. We still have a state of emergency, and we don't have a vaccine, and we don't have a therapeutic, so and I'm hopeful that we'll get more engagement, but the inability to interact directly, I think, is an inhibitor. And if we can look at how to securely manage Zoom and see what best practices are, that would be helpful. Like I said, I have my own
One thing that I could
ideas about that.
do is I can try to communicate between now and the next meeting with the town that any member of the public who's not on the agenda or, you know, doesn't need to be, but wants to participate, they can email me directly and I can provide them those specific credentials upon request. That's one workaround.
Let's not solve the problem here.
Yep.
My thought process would be, you know, separate registration for people on Zoom.
Okay.
And then we use the wait, then they get the credentials and then we use the waiting. Like I said, I don't want to solve the problem here. Okay, people's scorecard.
Nothing, nothing.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion that financial review become financial review / treasurer's report? So we can bring that together because it's logical.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Okay. So about the only thing that has changed since the last meeting has been the authorization of the borrowing from Machias. So we had a not to exceed $650,000. We have taken two $280,000 increments to pay for the school payment, leaving some residual for operational costs. I must have misinterpreted the full cost of what the transfer station might be asking for. So that's why I bumped it from to cover 2 months of school for an additional 100,000, thinking that you all were going to come calling for 103,000 total, not a percentage of that. So we're good in through commitment and sending out of the tax bills. And unless folks are very, very slow and historically not how they have been, then we won't need to borrow anymore. We'll pay that loan back. Since town meeting and the passing of the 2020 budget, there have been some slight additional expenditures that maybe aren't showing up in these financials right now, but they're all budgeted items. You know, I talked with the fire chief. He wanted to know about some of his expenditures that were in there. I said, your budget is passed. If it's something that's in the budget, it's now approved. Go ahead and purchase those items. So, I mean, I can go over. I mean, we've been on as close to a fiscal shoestring as we can. You know, not compromising operations or public safety or health and sanitation. But there hasn't been a big rush on expenditures yet. So there's really not much. I mean, we've been pretty fiscally prudent in these first 6 months. And then to also just be completely honest, since town meeting, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. So I have not digested these financials specifically, but if you have questions, I'm happy to try to provide any answers.
Almost,
I just a couple questions. Bill.
Yep.
On page 4, where expenses, I see that the county, that $300,000 that the county is going to ask for.
Yes.
You know when that's coming?
That comes later. I think it's October, but that comes after we've done all of our tax collection.
Okay.
Yep.
And then on page 2, where you're over so much on supplies, I'm assuming that that's the COVID reimbursable supplies as well.
And it was a way of trying to consolidate all those things to make
We
it
submitted
easier.
that for reimbursement.
No, we were getting through town meeting, giving department heads a little bit of time to do last minute purchases. That's a next thing on next week's to-do list.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, is it possible to have a line item for the $330,000 grant that goes into the revenue category?
It's considered a reimbursable. So we have expenses, we pay for those expenses, we send invoices to Northern Borders. They send us a check for 78% of those invoices, and it goes on an ongoing basis. So we don't get a $330,000 check.
well, not as that, that would be in the special revenue fund. This is just general fund expenditures. Correct.
These are basically all of our expenditures, including any special ones.
These are just our general revenue funds. Well,
Revenue,
you do have the scholarships there. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yep.
Um,
our trusts are also contained. Page 5 has our trusts.
yeah, I see the trust. Okay, I didn't know whether you mixed the funds
Yeah,
together.
everything basically will flow through the public works budget in those same lines that we appropriated the reserve monies plus the new appropriation to cover our portion. All expenditures will go out of there, and then we'll balance those revenues out. So we can do that internally with Trio. So we'll have an expense for $100,000, and then we'll have an offsetting revenue of $78,000. And so on balance, it'll show $22,000 was less out of that account after the reimbursement.
You got credit the revenue to the expense line?
Yep.
Okay.
It all still gets journaled. So there's the historical data of all the money out and all the money in is still there and accounted for. But at the end of the year, when we do our audit and reconcile everything, in theory anyway, all the money that was put towards the road project will be gone, and that will be expended, but there will not then show an additional deficit of $330,000 representing the grant.
No, I get what you're trying to do. Typically, in my experience, you do that with things like insurance reimbursement. Not for granted this, I think. For another time.
So revenue expense maps.
With your accounting, we can deal with that another time. We don't have money coming in.
Further down in the expenses though, the 91,000 shows up under paving. Shouldn't that be 46,000 and two other line items when we go to account for
So
it? If we go to,
on the financials that you're looking at, and I just went over this with the fire chief. He was curious about some line item type accounting, all of which is doable. But what you're looking at is financials generated from Trio, which is very much separate from the Excel document that we use to manage the budget and put together the budget. So within the budget, under paving and public works, there are 6 different lines, 2 of which are funded right now, totaling the 91,000. But in Trio, it only shows up as paving in general. Now, when you click paving, all the different expenses associated with paving are there. That's why when we do our kind of year-end budget, we have to pull up paving, look at all those expenses, and we've got our better system for classifying things with line items that correlate with our budget. But what you're looking at is just Trio generated finances, with does not fit hand in glove with our budget, meaning line item by line item. It's general categories: supplies, wages, benefits. But under supplies for fire department, for example, there's a dozen or so individual supply lines within the budget. Trio views it as supplies. And every time we have an expense, we type in what that supply was, when the date was, the invoice, and we put that all in there and we reconcile that at the end of the year. We should be, and we'll be doing it on an ongoing basis, but primarily we do it at the end of the year to allocate expenses to specific line items. That makes sense?
Yeah, I think I understand. Okay, so a couple of things that,
Can I follow up on that before you move on? So according to the detailed budget you gave me, what proposed at the time, it's 45,000. They're all on the paving here. There's only 2 items there. There's a road improvement project for 45,000 and island road reconstruction for 46,000. Totals 91. So
Yep,
that's still
the 46,000 was funded by the emergency management reserve drawdown
Yeah,
and the paving reserve drawdown, and the 45,000 was the new appropriation.
But both of those pots are, for lack of a better word, for the island road.
Correct. But we wanted to separate out
Yeah,
what was a
I got
drawdown from reserves to what was a new appropriation.
Thank you.
I gotta remember that you're here. Cheryl was always closest, so she would elbow me. Okay, a couple red flags. Ambulance billing. I can't conceive of it coming close to the 70,000. So just a red flag. And I have a question about the state revenue. The commitment way back when was the 126,000, right?
The projection,
The project, we put in the 90 and then found out that no.
correct.
But was that 126 for our calendar year, or did it start with the state fiscal year?
State fiscal year.
This week. So it's not 126. It's the first half, it's like the school thing, right?
Yep.
First half of the year, we get the 45,000, right, from the prior appropriation from the state. And this time we get half of the 126, if in fact they live up to their commitment.
Yes, the only bit to add on to that was in that second half of last year's budget, revenue sharing was ticking up over the previous year. So even though it's not the full 126 or whatever it was, it is still much closer because we projected even less in the previous year. And then in that, that's why we need to go to the fiscal year. But it was ticking up because of legislature's actions. So it's not a direct, I'm not putting this right because it's all the segments of it, but it's not a full halving. We did notice an uptick in the revenue that we were getting because we're on calendar. Legislature made changes and revenue sharing was increasing, not that full amount that we were expecting to realize in this fiscal year, but they had increased how much we were getting above what we've been projecting for the 2019 budget.
Okay, so the likelihood is we'll do better than 90, but probably not 126.
Correct.
Okay, has there been any more talk of reducing the homestead exemption?
I haven't heard anything about that. I'm not sure if they've had discussions because the legislature, everything was on pause. And then out of nowhere, I started to see that the legislature was having Zoom meetings. They're not making any decisions to the best of my knowledge, but they are meeting and discussing things. I haven't seen any communication from Maine Municipal to lead us to believe one way or the other. But that's a easy to grab revenue source for them, or reducing expenditures anyway.
Okay.
But I don't have any better guidance on it.
This level of uncertainty is really.
I will say though that
To live with it.
interestingly, still our local car sales folks are still having significantly better months for sales than they have had because the auto sales are continuing to do their 0% financing.
Yep.
Not everyone is still coming in to do the new vehicle registration, but that's something as it relates to that larger pot of
Real estate market is taking off.
yeah, we're getting a lot of inquiries. People are still
Buying real estate.
moving on new construction and buying and selling houses. That's been interesting. I heard on the radio anyway that people are kind of revamping because they've spent so much time at home, and a lot of the unemployment stuff, or people, continuing to have some level of income coming in. Now that they're spending so much time at home, they're wanting to do new items to make their home life better in a work from home, live more at home world.
Well, I was just gonna say, and traditionally, unless things have changed dramatically, late September, October, November are really usually big months for us excise tax wise. They have in the past.
Yeah, it didn't look that way last year though. Could
Well,
you send him the spreadsheet?
Maybe it wasn't last year, but in the past.
For what?
The excise tax, how many years did you do monthly excise tax?
Oh, geez. Like 3?
Yeah, why don't you send that around again?
Well, like I said, maybe this changed, but in the past, it was, sometimes October would be like twice what other months were.
Except their lobsters are $2.20 off the
Yeah,
dock
that's
right now. They're gonna go on strike
But,
pretty
yeah,
soon.
I'd be interested in seeing that. And can I ask one other question real quick? Can someone tell me what the password is for the
Password 1 with a capital P. Password.
Remind we're live.
Yeah.
It's posted out
It says
front.
public, but.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is posted out front. That's about the kind of security that we have, is you have to kind of show up and walk to the front door to know what the password is. It is, however, every passing person.
So what was it?
Password 1 with a capital P.
Okay. All right. Other citizens requests? I don't see one. I know non-resident requests. Currently Endorsky is later, so is Lane next?
Penny under department heads.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to give you an update that the library by appointments working very well. I've been able to space out the appointments in the various sections, so I'm giving the whole section a 3-day quarantine in between. So, and computers, children's section, adult section, that's worked out very well. we have like a soft opening at the book sale, and that started yesterday. That seems to be working out very well. I started posting flyers about the book sale, and I will be putting out a larger sign on the lawn. So that's, and the garden
I was gonna say,
is
how's the garden?
planted. So we should have enough tomatoes to feed the whole town if need be.
Great.
Thank you.
What kind of help did you get for that?
Oh, we have, 10, 12 people, including a 94-year-old Martha Carlson, who came to water for us, and will do periodic watering as needed.
You have the luxury of an outside spigot. You don't
We
have-
do, but it's by the front door, so we have 300 feet of hose going around. Arthur is taking on the mowing around the garden to help relieve the town contract, because it's kind of tight where we squeezed it in there for them.
And then Penny and I are continuing to work on some of the activity at Guilford Butler School. There's been more activity. So we're going to continue to work with the Sheriff's Department and try to deter that to the best of our ability.
And what are they doing?
Nicest, kindest breaker and enterers until recently. My understanding, some of the activity that we saw is starting to grow and escalate. Nothing that is still permanent in damage to the school itself, but remnants of drinking and smoking and things of which we do not want to have as activities in that building. So we'll continue to work with the Sheriff's Department in deterring that and trying to figure out how they're making entry.
I was just gonna, that aspect, I still don't know.
We've troubleshot out quite a few things. It's one of those, with the investigation being ongoing, maybe there's things that we don't discuss on camera so that we can catch them. Because we're going to catch them and we will prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. Put that on the camera.
Knox County has been wonderful, and there's been a lot of presence. I had them come to me and show me problem areas, and
We've walked through multiple sheriff's deputies and myself going through and rechecking everything to make sure windows are secured and things are secured. So again, the troubleshooting on trying to pinpoint and narrow down how exactly they're making entry.
You're not breaking in yet?
No, that's the thing. There's been
We
no.
still suspect someone has a key?
No.
Okay, you can't get there from here then. If you're not breaking in, you don't have a key.
Yeah, well, okay, there's no sign of forced entry.
Okay.
And that's not saying that there hasn't been forced entry, but it's not in the form of a crumpled bit of metal next to a door jamb or a broken window or something like that. Again, no permanent damage from what we've been able to see. Dumb kids being dumb kids that we will catch. I left them signs on the marker boards.
Is there any way we could put up some sort of temporary camera or something? Borrow one? I'm not suggesting we go out and buy
With the
$4,000.
investigation being ongoing, Mr. Member, we'll defer that conversation about exactly how we're going to catch said.
Because it would just seem to me if folks knew there was a camera there, that would be a deterrent.
And they're gonna look for it and they're gonna find my damn game cam. They're gonna steal my game cam.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So Lane is up.
Lane,
Can you bring her closer?
I can. Lane, could you talk just to get an audio check?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone.
Is that okay? Does that work?
Okay. So first of all, do you know us?
From the town meeting, vaguely.
All right. To my left is Jan Gaudio. He is in his second
Hi, Lee.
term on the select board and has been chairman 3 times. To my right is John Spear, who was elected last week, but this is not his first rodeo by any stretch of the imagination. He has sat at this table many times.
Yeah, 5, going back, starting in 1996.
And I'm Walter Wrights. So first of all, congratulations.
Thanks.
And where do you stand with the RSU in terms of being sworn in and are they doing anything to acclimate you and spin you up?
Yeah, so after I was sworn in at the town office, Lauren Andrews reached out to me. They're gonna have a meeting on the 16th, and they will, get the info out to me. It doesn't seem like there's too much they need to do or I need to do to make it official.
So there's a huge manual for how to be a school board member. Do you have that?
Yep, I have a digital copy I've started reading.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. You don't work for us. You don't report to us. You report to them. So, but from time to time, we would like to hear from you. So
Okay.
anytime you want to be on the agenda, call Owen and get on the agenda. And at budget time, we'd like any intelligence that you can bring to us about how it's going.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a wild ride with the pandemic and figuring out how that will affect the budget and everything. It'll be really interesting to join the school board at this moment, so I guess we'll see. Yeah, so I don't know. I just for background about myself, I've lived here in South Thomaston for about 1.5 years now. Moved from Camden, but I've worked in Rockport and Rockland and Camden area for a while. I worked at Out Main as a youth engagement coordinator doing youth programming. And a lot of that work was with the RSU 13 school district just because it was so local. So got to know some of the students and educators and some of the sort of after school programming and other things related to the school district. Before that, I worked as a prevention educator at New Hope for Women, the domestic violence agency, and Knox and Waldo County were my coverage areas. So I was in a lot of the schools in RSU 13 doing the prevention education, which was K-12. So I was in both the elementary school, middle school, high school. So pretty familiar with the school district. And yeah, I think that's sort of the relevant background that I'm bringing. And also, yeah, I'm hoping maybe to be in South Thomaston for a while. And I think that when there wasn't anyone who had taken out papers to run for the board, it seemed like a good sort of civic duty opportunity.
That it is. I think that you're going to find, from what I understand, that there's a significant time commitment to
Yeah.
this role. But there are 10 of you. I don't know how they divvy up the work, but and just speaking personally, when the schools of our future was starting up, we saw Superintendent McDonald and Peter Orm and some others with some degree of regularity, but not since. So somewhere along the line, you might want to put a bug in their ear that one of their constituent towns would probably like to hear from them. Just not your reporting, but have them clue us in. What's good, what's bad, what's going well, what needs to get better. I do occasionally watch their meetings, and they're archived, by the way, if you want to go back and look at the year.
Yeah, I saw that some of them were up, so I'll probably go and look through the most recent ones.
The town has yet to experience any of the cost savings that they predicted we would achieve through consolidation. And one thing you could do for me, Layman, is if you could figure out how many South Thomaston children there are in RSU 13. What's the demographic for us? I've asked that question a few times and I'm not really sure. I haven't gotten an answer that I could put my finger on.
At K through 12, you're talking?
Right.
Two questions. When you say you work for RSU 13, you weren't their employee, were you?
No.
Okay.
No, I worked for Outmain is a nonprofit organization. So we did a lot of work, sort of relationship building with students and like classroom presentations.
The
But I
reason
never
I'm
worked for
asking
the
is
school.
If you are an employee, that would make you ineligible to be on the
Yeah.
board. Okay. And then the other thing, I just wanted to offer you, I was the business manager at the former SAT 50, which was SAT 50 and SAT 5 consolidated to create RSU 13. And I was a business manager there for about 20 years. So I would be happy to give you my phone number and be willing to talk with you about some of the history and the history of the consolidation. I was quite involved in that, and maybe give you a little perspective regarding the consolidation and other issues as well. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Any resources would be helpful.
Anything top of mind that we can do for you to help with your transition?
I'm not sure yet. I think once I've finished reading the manual, which I'll do before the first meeting, they're not going to meet until after the school budget vote, you know. So they're meeting on the 16th, even though it's not their normal time to meet. So once I attend that first meeting and have read through the manual completely and maybe reach out to some of you all for conversations, I think I'll have a better sense of you know, information that I could give you or information follow-up that I might, questions I might have from you all. Yeah, I'm excited about this, and also this is my first sort of, I've like attended school board meetings, but this is my first time sort of taking on such a responsibility. So I'm also, I think, have a steep learning curve here. So we'll see.
Best of luck. We're part of your resource group.
We appreciate you taking this on.
Yeah, and we look forward to having this conversation 3 years from now after you run for re-election.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can keep you all updated, and I'm sure to be busy. I'm going to be on the Policy and Communications Committee. I know that, as well as attending their regular business meetings. And I don't know if I'll end up on other committees or not, but that one to start with. So I think, yeah, I'll have a lot more information to share and perhaps some more questions shortly.
Well, welcome again and congratulations and thanks for stepping up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lane.
Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Right. Andrew, if you want to tee yourself up, you are the next agenda item.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, Andrew.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, just tee this item up a little bit. So prior to town meeting, you all had met, the previous board had met with Andrew again, gone over designs. One of the things that was requested was basically a document that better laid out how this process was going to go and what the town could expect. Gartley and Dorsey submitted that in the form of the Island Road Continued Engineering Services proposal, which is a document of which we can sign and accept. We have not, as a board, discussed this document with Gartley and Dorsey in more of a workshop form because of town meeting and all the things that were going on around then. So what I provided in your packet was the continued engineering services proposal, and then Gartley and Dorsey's original response to the request for proposal for engineering services. What I'm not asking for tonight is that the board sign or make a motion to sign this continued engineering services proposal. What I'm asking is that the board make a motion, if you felt comfortable enough, to continue forward with Gartley and Dorsey as our retained engineering firm, and that we have subsequent meetings after you all have maybe spent a little more time with this document. I can send any questions that you have about it to Gartley and Dorsey, and then we can have a meeting in the not too distant future to hash out and negotiate details of this proposal. I want Gartley and Dorsey to know that the town is going to continue with them so that they can do a dual track. One, start moving forward on some of the things that we know just need to be done for this project. So like permitting, for example, are things that they could get started on right now. The number of test borings that we do in which locations along the project area are things that can be fleshed out over time and can be negotiated in this proposal. But to get them moving on some of the must-dos, I just wanted you all to maybe affirm that we will continue with them, and then that will allow them to go forward. As soon as I have the notice to proceed, they can go full bore on the must-dos for this project. We can be getting reimbursements for them through Northern Borders. And then in the not too distant future, we can completely hash out this proposal document and agree to something that makes sense for all parties. But that's not what I'm asking to do tonight.
John?
They moved it on the block.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is, I guess I'm still not clear how Gartley and Dorsey can move forward if we don't have a signed agreement with them, unless the first portion is not 100% complete, which I believe it is.
So the first port, there is some remaining monies in there, but not enough to do, say, permitting.
So, so my question stands that I don't see how we can do that, and actually, quite frankly, I'm uncomfortable with authorizing them to move ahead until we have an agreement.
I'm ready to move forward with this. I don't know why we want to delay it.
Only because we have not gone through this document.
But Andrew's here. We can have some of that questioning right now.
Yep, I'm fine with that if you all want to do that.
I'll kick it off, Andrew.
Can you hear all right, Andrew?
I can. You're absolutely great. Thank you.
Yeah, the question really has to do with the optional portion, where you're talking about geotechnical investigation, which sounds like that is drilling that no one's referring to. One, I'm wondering why it's optional, and what's the advantage or disadvantage of not doing it or doing it? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So geotechnical information is always beneficial to have. The difficulty with geotechnical information is it varies greatly depending on where you're located. So to get into the geotechnical work, what that would entail is actually bringing a drilling rig to the site. They're small, they're transportable. It's not like going to be a big disturbance. And they would drill down in several locations along the proposed project area. And they would pull up a sample so that we could look at the sample, observe it, and actually test it to see what our bed material is made of in those locations. I know we've been told there's a lot of that connector road appears.
I understand all that. What's the advantage of doing it or not doing it?
So the advantage of doing it is we would have additional information available. The
That would lead you to
disadvantage, so that we could see the road material that's in place in those locations that we bore. The disadvantage of doing it is if we spend the money and we bore, we can move 50 feet away from where we bore and have different material there. So your testing is only as good as you get. And we do that often where we have geotechnical work and we hire that and we have them come in and we look for ledge and look for to uncover certain things, and we drill, and then 25 feet away, we run into an entirely different situation out there. So that's why we always run it as an optional thing to let the town know that, look, the information's only as good as how often we drill. We're not going to have a perfect scenario here. We can drill 100 holes or 200 holes, and still you might miss some of these things that we're trying to uncover out there.
Well, let me be hypothetical. Let's assume that we do it. What will that change, or what would you do differently as a result?
If we do the road and we do the geotechnical, we'll know exactly what's down below, so that we can adjust our road material. But in this circumstance, what we're putting the road on, I mean, I envision that all of this, everything that we've talked about so far is going to be elevating the road. So we can put a fabric down, we can pull that pavement back or grind the pavement in, put a fabric down, ignore the existing conditions, and then just build up from there and skip the geotechnical entirely, unless there's some underlying issues that you guys are aware of, or if we think we should get to the bottom of. Looking at the road conditions out there, I'm not 100% certain I would go forward with the geotechnical unless there's something you're looking for and that we need to identify.
Okay, thank you. You've answered my question.
Can I ask a
Great.
follow-up on the geotechnical? Are you moving on to something else? Just a follow-up on the geotechnical. My biggest concern would be right near the pond. I've heard anecdotally over years that that's built up with what they call granite grout. I'm assuming you're familiar with that term. So if we do,
I haven't encountered granite grout, but I can envision what it might be.
well, it's big chunks of granite thrown into a haphazard pile.
Right.
You can see remnants of it above ground down on 131 and that huge, remnant pile there. But anyways, that would be my area of biggest concern, quite frankly. But if the plan is to move the road, and I'm the new guy on the block, I don't know if that is the plan or not. I know that was discussed, but that somewhat alleviates my concern, because I think very quickly it turns very ledgy up in there. You can almost see it on the inside, if you will. So could you update me, or can someone update me on the status of moving the road? Because I would imagine that involves right-of-way issues, and that can
It definitely.
very complicated.
So where we stand right now on the schematic plans is we are proposing to relocate the road, which will require coordination of the right-of-way. However, unrelated to the road base material, the geotechnical report, ultimately the road is going to be elevated through that section. And again, it brings us back to the situation. Even if we have the ledge grout there and we have big voids, for one, you would start seeing a lot of that on the surface. And if we don't have an issue on the surface now, which I haven't seen out there, I mean, the road's cracking and kind of crumbling in a few spots, but there isn't big voids that we're losing material down through. So to solve either one of those conditions is we'd put a stronger geotechnical fabric across the road and build the road up from there rather than having to even worry about conditions. So the geotechnical fabric holds everything together. It prevents and it spans those voids if something does open up. But by the time we're done preparing the road base, putting a fabric down and building the road up, I'm confident that even if there are voids hidden down below there, unless they're presenting now, which I haven't seen, we really wouldn't need to worry about that granite ledge and the cobblestones that are placed down in some of these locations like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but the road's going to shift away from the pond about the width of the road now.
It is. That's the current plan, as long as everything goes smoothly, and where we're proposing to actually put the road is on a lot of ledge. So we know it's right through that ledge knob down through there, so half the road relocation would be sitting on the ledge.
So where do we sit with the landowners?
Well, we're proposing all that land down through that right of way is owned by the pound. Quite honestly, they own the property on both sides of the right of way. And so what we're proposing to do is improve their parking access in the parking lot directly adjacent to the building and offset it by taking some of the land that's over through the ledge hump that's really unusable. So we're hoping to make kind of a land swap with them and adjust the right of way. We definitely need to work with them. I know Owen's reached out to them a couple of times. I don't believe he's actually connected with them to date, but he has reached out to them, and we'll have to continue to kind of proceed working with them. But in my experience doing this, when somebody's going to get a big benefit from how the land's going to be configured by giving them more of that frontage, quite honestly, or giving them more usable frontage over there, I think it'll be a win-win for everybody, quite honestly.
And just to throw it out there, for the entire project in both areas, there is only one landowner of which we need to deal with for the right of way, and it's the folks that we've been talking about. To where-
One at each location.
Nope,
Okay.
Nope. just up by the Lobster Pound, and like Andrew says, if done the way that we plan on doing it, we will make their operational land better, more usable for them. It would be awkward if they said no.
But I thought there were also a couple of right-of-ways involved.
Nope.
No, we're gonna use the existing right of way back where Island Road and Village Road.
Right, but there was also on the plan that I saw, there were two right-of-ways up by the Mako Seafood that were gonna be consolidated into one.
Entrances,
Well, yeah, but that's access to someone's property.
Right.
yep. And we've discussed with those landowners, they're very happy with the proposal that we have. We've incorporated some of their thoughts. But the land is owned just by the seafood folks.
But obviously, they have some sort of right of passage there, even if it's water's right.
And actually, the second driveway, or it's not really a second driveway, it's a loop there.
Yeah.
But the second opening to the loop was put in there because of the danger of the initial.
Yeah.
It's a blind entrance.
Right. I walked it.
So, yeah, so they asked for that to be put in a few years back. And I think that what's proposed is going to move, the driveway's kind of in the middle between those two existing openings. It's gonna widen it to a 2-lane entrance and exit so people can get onto it as people are coming out, which neither exists that way now. So in our initial discussion, as Owen said, I think the land users, I'll say, instead of owners, are gonna be happy with the change.
And then I've wanted to do additional work. It's difficult to try to do that without the assistance of professionals, which is why I'm very happy that the money was approved, because now we can retain professionals to assist me with this. But my guesstimation is what we're going to find is they have a right of way to access, but not any sort of right on how that goes. We're not substantively altering how they ingress or egress their properties.
That's not a battle I want to get into, because I mean, you may be correct, but $200,000 later, you may be correct. I mean, you know, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but.
But we want to accommodate them as best we can.
Sure, that's why I'm trying to get up to speed on that. And one other question, by moving the road, Andrew, do you get into those wetland areas at all? And does that complicate or perhaps negate your ability to get a permit?
No, we will be into the wetlands in both of these scenarios, both of the road segments, I believe. Quite honestly, more so down by the Lobster Pound area. But we're going to incorporate that into the permitting process. And based on my experience, I'm confident that we have a strong reason to pull the road. We have a necessity to impact those wetlands. They're not a high value wetland. So that I think we should be successful in incorporating those into our NRPA permitting.
Do you know roughly how many square feet will be impacting of those wetlands? Like, isn't there a cutoff of like 4,000 for?
There is. So you can impact 4,300 square feet of wetlands prior to needing a full permit. But we're going to be working within 25 feet of the resource, so we're going to need a full permit anyways. So basically between 4,300 and 15,000 square feet is where you really get into the NRPA permitting tiers. Beyond that, it gets more complicated, but we'll be well within those parameters.
When I talked with DEP a while back, just as like a courtesy call, they said, regardless of the square footage of which we disturb, because of our proximity, we were looking at a full NERPA permit almost regardless.
So straightening and not straightening, where do we land on that?
Andrew, we are not straightening.
Yeah.
the road. We are
Yep.
realigning.
Exactly. So the Island Road, as it goes by the lobster company there, the Sprucehead Lobster Company, it kind of creates an S turn. So what we're doing is we're essentially less exaggerating that S turn and kind of leaving it in an S turn, but we're going to kind of slide it back away from the pond and away from the lobster pound. So we still will have, it won't be a straight road through there. There's still going to be two sweeps from basically off the bridge. We're going to sweep a little bit more abruptly, if you will, and then it's going to be a more gentle transition as you get past the lobster pound there. So we're not going to create this straight section. I know it's a big concern that we don't want to have a big paved wide road that's straight between the bridge, past everything down there. Traffic is already fast enough. But what we're going to do is pull it back, open it up, but there'll still be a sweep to it, if you will.
And also the grassy area that's down near the pond, what do you done?
Oh, we don't.
Yeah.
To me, like it's big enough to be parking.
We're not doing any parking in any of this project anymore. Yep.
So it's just
It's having Village Road come in, tee up better on Island Road, improve sight lines, and allow for still a good sweep of commercial sized traffic. So, residential traffic, your personal vehicle will have zero problem. We're even still making the turning radius good enough for your semi-tractor trailer trucks, but you will tee up better to Island Road, be able to see, and then pull out onto Island Road in a fashion that doesn't have you feel like you don't know what's coming at you.
Well, right, the existing Island Road to Village Road, if you come down Island Road and try and turn right on Village Road,
Yep.
They run off the road and end up in the ditch. These three vehicles that I've known that have done that, they cut that corner short. That's a tough corner.
Yep.
If you come down Village Road and want to turn left on Island Road, same problem. You can't see what's coming down that hill that comes past. There's a sidebar to this whole project that I think that we as the board should consider reducing the speed on that road anyway.
Two things on that.
That's a
One, Andrew and I did go and talk with Huidonks, and they brought up that exact thing, Jan. And so I know Andrew has taken some notes about that spot specifically and trying to mitigate out people getting stuck in there and making
I
it.
think an oil truck the last one.
Oh, yeah.
Pellet cracker.
And then on the speed items, we cannot place speed bumps because of the speed limit there. And we can't change the speed limit. We can propose to DOT that they do a traffic study. It can seem to go either way. Sometimes they even say, and I don't know, I wouldn't.
Town road now?
It's a town road, but Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have any control, even if it's a town road, on altering the speed limit. That's not our call.
Right. They want, the DOT is going to want to govern the speed limits on these roads.
And it also can take 2 or 3 years.
And I wouldn't envision that with this, but I've seen cases to where people say they drive too fast, you need to reduce the speed limit. DOT comes, does their sight lines, does traffic count, does everything, and they've actually increased by 5 miles an hour the allowable speed limit. You never know.
I sort of heard that.
We heard a lot about speed bumps, and that was something that Andrew and I talked about, the current
Not
speed
proposing
limit.
speed bump.
No, I just,
Proposing a speed limit.
Yep.
But we can, that's a sidebar. I don't want to cloud this project with that.
are there any other specific questions in the proposal that you have that you want clarification on before you possibly approve this proposal as written?
Can we get a real big rendering of the two plants to use?
I have them, the ones that were at town meeting.
I didn't see those.
Yep, I had them up in the back. I have them here at the office, and I can, yep, sure.
Thank you.
A couple more questions. Andrew, in section 4C2, it says you'll assist with the coordination with the utility company regarding potential utility pole relocations. I assume we are gonna need to relocate the pole.
Yes.
And what does assist mean? I mean, that can be,
Well, it's as clear as I can be when dealing with utility companies. quite
well, that's
honestly.
why I'm
So-
asking the question.
Yeah, so how the procedure works is, generally the town, if the town wants to start the process of relocating poles, they would have to contact CMP or whoever's pole it is, open up a project number, then CMP would be willing to talk to the town and talk to me regarding relocation of that. So usually that's how it goes. We can notify them, tell them we need to relocate some poles. And then ideally, you turn that over to the contractor. If they don't get on it when we need them to, then you get the contractor, whoever's hired to do the project, to then step in and kind of push them a little bit further to get some poles out of the way. If we know in advance, sometimes we can be successful working between the town and the engineer, but quite often they generally don't respond well to the town or the engineer. It's the contractor that actually needs them out of the way for the road before you get their attention. So that's why we say assist. We can't assure you we can convince them somehow to move the telephone poles, but we'll work with the coordination between them, the town, the contractor, and try to put all the pieces together.
The reason I bring that up is I've been involved in 2 or 3 projects where this has turned into a real hassle.
Yeah, it always is.
Delays, the contractor then feels he's entitled to, and everybody points at everybody else. So that's why I was curious about that. And the other question that I have is, I didn't see anything in the proposal that would allow the town to terminate this agreement if we got into this and discovered that, we had major issues, and, that it was gonna run it became clear to everyone it was gonna run significantly over budget. And that makes me, a little uncomfortable that we go ahead and spend 27,000 or whatever it is for something that we may know early on is not going to work. And you also, can you talk a little bit about the value engineering? I assume that simply means if it comes in way over budget, we cut things back. Am I correct?
Well, that's it exactly. So Gartley and Dorsey, 98% of our contracts are based on our hours in billing. So every hour we put in, we bill directly. So, and we work with the towns on that. So if we get to a point and we've done $4,000 worth of work and the town says, look, we're done with the project, we would terminate the contract. You pay us what we've spent on the project and we kind of go away. We kind of value working with towns. We want to work with you again, and we want to help you through these processes. So we're not going to invoice you for a project that needs to be terminated for one reason or another. So all the contract is, it's for your benefit to see this is what we anticipate the project's going to cost. And then if you decide you don't want us to do any construction oversight, or if you want to pull out and do the permitting yourselves or something like that, then we can cut those pieces out of the contract as we go forward with these things. With regards to the value engineering, it's just that. So when we get construction prices back for the project, if they're over the price and you have a contractor, usually you try to line up the contractor you want to work with during that process, and then we can talk with them, work with them, and see what we can kind of cut back on some of these things, whether we change a road material, a pavement thickness, a guardrail type. Whatever we want to do, kind of working with the contractor to find cheaper alternatives is generally what I do. So it's just a line item we include in there because I know it takes a bunch of time and effort, quite honestly, and I like to show you that individually rather than just put a big lump sum on the paper and see what you're getting into. If the prices come in, they're under budget, we're on budget, and we don't have to get into value engineering, we don't charge you for that service. So it's for every hour we work, we have our billing rates, and we charge you for those hours.
So let me restate that. That sounds to me like time and materials, and if we decide that this is too much for our appetite, it's over. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So if the only thing where it gets sticky and complicated, if you wanted to get rid of us without any reason and bring somebody else on and say we're done, which I don't anticipate the town would do to us, but I think that that's how we don't have these long contracts. We've talked about it for years. We don't have a 6-page, 10-page contract that goes through all the details of what you can and can't do. But ultimately, yes, if you wanted to sign this contract, get us on board to do this, we start going through the permitting, and all of a sudden something happens, especially given the current circumstances with everything being unknown now with COVID, and you decided, no, we're going to stop this project, then we stop the project, plain and simple. So we'll stop it. We'll invoice you for the time we have into it, and then we can hopefully talk when you're ready to do it again.
Okay. Satisfied. Maybe if we could perhaps conclude that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what's your pleasure?
Well, I'm ready to vote on the contract. We want to make a modification. If not within the contract, at least within the preamble here, I guess I would call it. Something to the effect of, if the project ends, that we would be able to back out of the contract or be able to change the contract to a time and material. That's what I would call it too.
Andrew,
Yes.
if we add a slight 2-3 sentence addition to this document, just restating what we've already discussed, do you have any issues with that?
Not at all. The only other thing I'd like to add is that I was able to reduce the total cost, as you see if you go through the numbers, and the proposed fee is different from the base services down the bottom line. And I was able to reduce our cost by about $1,000 on the top end. So the line for base services should be the same number as in the proposed fee on that last page. So it should be $22,500 to $27,000.
27,000. Yep.
I did notice that.
But no, I'm not opposed at all. If you want to put a language on there that if you need to terminate it for some reasoning, then absolutely no. We're not going to invoice the town for work we don't commit to or need to do.
All right, so then maybe what I would recommend is that the board vote on a designee. Let me work up some basic language to that effect, and then the designee could come in. As long as the language is a reflection of what we've discussed here, then the designee signs off.
I would move that we accept the Gartman-Dorsey proposal with base services only at the amount of $22,500 to $27,000. Maybe I should say as amended.
Base services, no geotechnical, as amended.
I don't support the geotech. I think he answered my question with that.
For a second? Yeah, there's a second. I do have one other question for the board. But I do second that.
Discussion.
I didn't attend any of the public meetings, and I'm just curious if someone could you folks could maybe give me a sense of welcoming. I know we had a lot of issues surrounding the improvements that were done down by the post office. And I'm just kind of curious if there was what the reaction was.
This was from that.
Yeah, but
Was it well attended, first of all?
the initial meeting that we had at the Sprucehead Community Hall was well attended, good discussion. I would, I don't want to categorize everybody's opinion, but my sense from that was maybe there was I recall one person that probably said, what are we doing this for? Do we need to do this at all? Yeah. But I think the majority of the people were close to the project, first of all, from those that either lived on Island Road or on Village Road and had a horse in the race, so to speak. And I think overall, everybody thought it was a good idea, a good plan. I know that there was some question raised about wells, which exist in that same area that you're talking about where the driveways come through. But I think Andrew has addressed those and answered those questions to Jim McDonald was one that brought that up to his satisfaction. I mean, Owen, you were there at those meetings as well.
From the community meetings to the in-person meetings with some of the landowners that are most directly affected, to email correspondence with folks that are affected in various different ways, it has been well received. I know that when we had initially proposed some of the parking items around Huidonks, that was not well received. That was something that was just a concept thrown out there. We've since struck that. Like Jan said, Jim McDonald and some of the folks in and around the Lobster Pound area had some concerns. I'll say that virtually every, if not every email correspondence I got, they raised some concerns: driveway, pole placement, wells, propane, but it was always with the preamble of Andrew did a very good job addressing all of these concerns. He did a very good job presenting the project. It seems to be more of an intellectual hurdle. Folks that consider blasting and removing and construction under certain, that's what they saw when they were kids, and everything gets shattered and everything gets blown up and wells get ruptured. The way that it's done nowadays is much more controlled. It's systematic, it's layer by layer. So it's been, as far as I can tell, well received as far as the project. And I think also the level of which the town has really tried to push out and say, tell us if you have concerns. I've tried to be very responsive as quickly as I can, providing people information, resources. So generally speaking, it's very well received by the town.
And just one other thing, and I'm sorry, but it's just hard for me to vote on something this big without really understanding it and coming in halfway through it. But when you say you reached out, that was kind of a follow-up. Have we reached out to the companies, if you will, that generate the big truck traffic there at all? And I'm just, have we reached out to them? Have they commented? Has there been any, are they aware?
Most of the comments that I've gotten have been from the folks on the receiving end of those trucks, the folks that are concerned about kind of the speed of those vehicles and the fact that the curves and the turns of which we're trying to mitigate out so that the sight lines are better. But to answer your question directly, no, I have not figured out exactly which trucking companies come through there and ask them about this.
Well, I wasn't talking about the trucking companies. I was talking about the companies that.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Travis was at one of those meetings. He's the manager of Atwood.
Okay.
But that was the only person I know that.
Yeah. And they're probably the biggest truck generator. Okay, thank you.
And doesn't his brother run the,
Co-op.
not the co-op, the other place?
Oh,
No, that's Eric Tweedy that runs Maine Coast, the one by the pond. But also a local, tough time.
But obviously you reached out to them because.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yes, we have a preliminary, but this will be, now we'll do it in earnest.
yeah, and it was one of those things that prior to making direct contact and saying, hey, can you engage with us? We wanted to make sure that we knew exactly what it is that we were proposing to them before we started saying, can you consider signing some pieces of paper for us?
The very, very first meeting we had, public meeting we had, we didn't really have any drawings or anything to show people because we hadn't hired an engineer. We hadn't started the process. It was a concept at that point. So there were a lot of engineering related questions that I think were later answered at the second public meeting when Andrew was able to have some drawings and show some preliminary.
And quite frankly, I haven't heard a lot of scuttlebutt just with the grapevine.
Yeah.
I think if the town was looking to foot this entire bill, there would be some scuttlebutt around there, but
Oh, yeah, yeah.
with the recipients of this substantive grant,
I understand that. I
The
understand that.
grant
But there
might have a
wasn't,
difference,
you know, there wasn't a great deal of discussion at town meeting about it. I know we did vote on it, it was in there, but I mean, I don't think most people were even aware of that. That's why I kind of raised the question that I did, just to say, well, if you got any questions?
It's in there, yeah. Yes, it was in there.
And nobody really did, so.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded and discussed. All in favor?
You do a roll call, yeah?
Oh,
nope, well, you all are in
Aye.
person and you're on camera, but. Yep. Great, any parting,
You're gonna work the amended words
yep,
in there
Circulate that.
and
oh,
change
did
the day
you
services price.
name a designee?
So to sign on behalf, I would move that the chair be approved to sign on behalf of the.
person knows the least about this particular subject.
Basically, all you're signing for, Walter, is the amendment.
I know, positive that I've done
I'll second that. I would like to see the amendment though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would too. I think it's, once you and Andrew come to agreement on it.
Any further discussion on that item?
That's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Whatever. I say it, well, this was as a chair, I think. not to do that.
I'm fine, I'm fine.
And then
Put you in a spot.
Andrew, we'll probably, you and I will communicate on some things. I'll get this language worked up. We'll get the proposal signed. I did receive some stuff from Northern Borders to continue moving forward to get that notice to proceed. I anticipate getting that by the end of this week. And then you and I will work on scheduling another kind of, not kickoff meeting with the board, but maybe in the next couple of weeks, another meeting to go over the game plan and bring everyone up to speed. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Thank you all very much. We greatly appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing to work with you on this project.
Thanks, Andrew.
Good night.
Great. Thank you, Andrew.
Have a great night.
You too.
Item C,
You all know that the items as presented at town meeting were passed. And so I basically put this item on just to see if post-town meeting and post-approval of the budget, you all had any specific guidance on how I go about managing that budget. It's going to be basically the same way that I've managed your previous budget, which is keep operations good, don't spend money ridiculously, follow the purchasing policy, do what's in the budget as close as I can without, just trying to spend this money. But I just didn't know if you all had any other guidance you wanted to give me as I work on managing the last 6 months of this budget.
I would just say stay within the approved budget. That's,
Love that.
if you find an area where you're going to exceed, you need to come talk to us. I'd like to hear that and why. And if it's a department head that needs to come see us, so be it. I don't want to see, particularly this year, I don't want to see any big overruns.
but, so I think that's fine. I think that we have enough to do of significant importance between now and into the fall. That we tend to our knitting there. I would just to seed some thought for the fall. I'd like to suggest that we have a goal setting workshop in September that looks out to 2021. And we start thinking about how we slot some things that, for instance, we owe an update to the comprehensive plan, best I can tell. As a matter of fact, we're
10
late.
years old.
What?
It's 10 years old.
Yeah. And now the other thing is that the census data is going to be late. So that's probably a back half of 2021. We start looking at that. That's something that's on my mind. The calendar came, the fiscal calendar came.
Yeah.
And I, again, would like the sense of my colleagues here. I think we should go out and seek either from MMA or some other organization, somebody who's done it before, that forgets more about changing a fiscal calendar than we're ever gonna know, that can guide us through that process. So that we don't have. I refinished the floors of my first house and I learned two things: how to refinish floors, and that I never wanted to do it again. So I'd look to you guys to tell me that I'm crazy or not, or we do. I mean, the first thing we have to do, I think, is come to grips with what's the sense of the town, because the town's been down this road before, from what I understand. And if we polled everybody, we wouldn't get universal hurrahs for changing the calendar.
I don't recall us being down the road of changing the fiscal year. I've heard us discuss having two tax payments, and I see those as two distinct things.
Okay.
Personally, one, I can't remember which, one the select board can do, and one town, the select board can change the fiscal year.
They can change.
We don't have to, we could take it down.
I'd be inclined to do that.
They are
But-
related only because changing the fiscal year is going to impact the property taxes. Whether it's, you know, paid twice a year or once a year, it's still.
But it doesn't mean you have to go to twice a year. It
No.
doesn't change.
No. But there's advantages to it from a
Cash
management
flow.
of cash flow.
I didn't realize we we're gonna discuss this tonight, but, you know, I'm personally, you know, as I sit here tonight, I'm very much in favor of changing the fiscal year. I'm not sure I am taxes, but I will say, I agree with you 100%. I think we should bring some people in who have done this before, because it does get complicated, and you really gotta do either an 18-month budget or a 6-month budget, and you commit based on valuation. It's complicated. But the problem is, most everybody who did it 25 years ago. So I'm not sure there's a lot of,
MMA might be able to help.
yeah, they might.
Somebody.
I mean, it'd be nice to find a town that's done it, say, within the last couple of years, but I don't think you're gonna find a slow.
I did, when we had this conversation a little while back, I did reach out to an auditor that I had done some previous work with. The audit firm does almost exclusively municipalities, not exclusively, but had a great conversation with their owner. And he is happy because of the work that we just got along really, really well. He said he was happy to try to put me in contact with some folks that have done it before. He and his firm has managed this process before as far as the audit side of it and giving advice. It is not our auditor, it's just my pre-existing relationship with the individual, and he's just happy to call me on the weekend or at night, and we just have a brief chat about it. Our auditor is generally knowledgeable about it, though I don't believe has gone through and managed that process as extensively. So if you want, I can reach out to a separate.
Premature. I'm throwing things out we want to go through the summer, knock our priorities off, and then start thinking about 2021, but I don't want to do that in December. That's my point. I like another example is the town landing. We bought that piece of property, we stored all that granite over there, we've done a preliminary thing, but we need to move that somehow, and so that's just another one of these
Yeah,
things.
that's one of those things that I feel the same way about it, but, you know, we delayed that based on other priorities
Yeah.
that came up this year. But no, in fact, that's partly endorsed as well. We had asked them for a phased plan to be able to start doing some improvements there.
So I'm doing stream of consciousness, and let's move on to.
Yeah.
But goal setting, I have a note for goal setting in September.
That's a great idea.
And so a point that John made. My practice with Owen has been on the Tuesday before the Tuesday meeting. We have an agenda setting meeting, and if anybody who wants something on the agenda can either contact Owen or contact me to include in that meeting. If that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I would like to see the agenda out Thursday night, though. I think that's reasonable, and I know you're always up against it, but that's just the way it is.
Oh, and sorry for not including you when I sent out the draft. I addressed it to John and Jan. Here's the draft.
Right, I
agenda.
saw that.
And then I didn't, I somehow didn't include you on it, so
That's
my
okay.
apologies.
That's okay, that's why we communicate. Who's on Zoom?
That's the fire chief.
is.
He's looking good, isn't he? He also did message me and said that he believes roughly 14 years ago, St. George went and did that transition. Tim Polkey might have some input. Can you shake your head? Yeah, he's giving thumbs up. Yep.
Well, and John Powell's still around too. I mean, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to come and speak to us. He was the town manager then.
And then I had heard on the tax collection side that Vinyl Haven had gone and transitioned to the 2 collections once a year. I did reach out to Andrew out there. He said he wasn't the manager during that time, but the lady who was is now the manager, I think, for Stonington or a different island. He said he's happy to put me in contact. And then we started doing town meeting type stuff. But we will continue to pull together some resources, folks that have already done this, and give us best practices.
Sue Lestard, by chance?
That almost sounds familiar. Yep. All right. The next item, appointments.
How do we want to do this? Do we want to group them or do we want to do each one individually?
You have the email. Yep.
Yeah, for example, we've got Owen with 4, we've got Gerald Gerson with a couple. You know, we've got election clerks as a group, we've got Board of Appeals as a group.
Here's maybe how I would recommend, if there are specific ones, like we don't know yet the term for the fire chief, that you might want to hash out and have that discussion. Once you have clarity on all this, read off everyone's name, appointment, and year termination. I have all the appointments already made up. As long as you say the name, the position, and a termination, you can then have one motion to take all of those folks, but you might want to have any discussion about changing or altering these. Specifically, planning board, just so you know, I gave John Hanson a 1-year appointment. I gave Jeff Northgraves a 3-year appointment and Richard Ratcliffe a 2-year appointment. It met with a staggered term for appeals board in general, and also both John and Richard have a lot of things going on. We're slightly hesitant to want to make that commitment, but because appeals doesn't meet all that often, it was one of those. Jeff Northgraves seems to be completely fine with it. John, Richard had some things going on. It met with staggered terms and it made their commitment less. So those are some of the type things, if you have questions about the years of which I put on.
I don't have
for
that
these.
list. I know you sent it to me, but my wife was on the computer.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I couldn't print it out.
So,
Is this an extra?
Yeah, it's fine.
is there a reason we don't know the fire chief's term? You said we don't know it, you have question.
We have to decide on.
He had requested a 5-year term. You have the option of anywhere between 1 year and 5 years. And it wasn't, I didn't know what you all were going to determine for. He's one of the few ones to where you have a good flexibility on that.
What was his last appointment? How long?
3 years.
3 years.
All the other, so like planning board with Sandy Retzlaff, that's historical, a 3-year appointment. That's why. So I looked over the previous appointments that we had. Walter, my apologies, I didn't pull together the budget committee appointments prior to this meeting. But yes, there is some cleanup work to do to stagger better those budget committee members. But we're not doing any budget committee members tonight as far as needing a quorum or having a full committee.
I have several questions as we go down through this, and some that aren't related to this list here. So I would prefer to kind of personally just take them kind of one by one and tick off the ones that we can and then, but I hate to make more minutes for you.
Hey,
But you
yeah,
gotta- you
look at
gotta-
this thing. It's
But you
great.
got a word process, you can just.
He's got this list, so.
Yeah, do you mind if I just go and print that off again real quick? I gave John, so you all can start your discussion. No, it's fine. It takes me just half a second.
Okay. We'll start at the top. Town administrator. Unless you want to jump ahead, John, if you,
No, I'm good with that.
okay.
I would move that we appoint all four of those positions. Town administrator, treasurer, general assistants, and FOIA officer to Owen.
Second, for a term ending 2021.
2021, yes.
Second,
Any discussion? Okay, one action that we need to do is take the town administrator's job description and the town clerk's job description and make them correct.
I agree with that.
So,
That's our personnel manual.
yeah,
Under appendices, I think, on the first one.
because we made Chelsea the town clerk, and the history of their job is, we brought Chelsea on thinking about her filling this role, but also the next role.
Grooming her.
So,
no,
and part of the attraction was, for her, was to have the clerkship and, some other stuff. You probably know she's doing a master's degree in public administration.
I'm good with that. Having served in that role, I think that position wore too many hats.
Well, Owen also told us that he was, I don't want to speak for him, but he was not going to do this forever.
No, that's fine. So, did you call for a vote on this?
No,
Okay, I couldn't remember what it
That's been moved and
had.
seconded. All in favor?
Was Owen taking minutes though, or does he need to?
It's got a recording.
It's being recorded.
Yeah, that's a big one. Okay.
Yeah, I'm kidding, because it's Chelsea. She does the.
Uh,
Speaks in my crotch.
I'll move to appoint Phil Guerrero, registered voters for term ending 2021.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
I'll move to vote Gary Grissom, road commissioner for term ending 2021.
Second. Any discussion? Any sense for how much gas he's got left in the tank?
I think his heart is willing, rather his body will.
Yeah.
I'm also saying we have reappointed you to the first four items on the list. And reappointed Phil, and just about ready to reappoint Jerry.
And we're about to reappoint wonderful Jerry Grissom. All in favor?
So those were three separate motions?
No, we made one motion for the first four.
And then one motion for Phil.
Yes.
For Jerry.
And the terms that you,
If you have the.
Happy 7th of July!
You probably can pull that.
Go America.
I'll move to appoint Amy Drinkwater as the ambulance service director
Second?
for term ending 2021.
Any discussion? No, all in favor?
Ready. I do have a question here. In the past, we always appointed the assistant ambulance director. That is no longer the case, or has that position been eliminated?
David Elwell, the assistant.
That could just be an oversight on my part.
Well, and maybe it doesn't need to be. Maybe the director.
I
can do
didn't
that.
see that in the spreadsheet that we created based on the appointments that we had.
Could you just check that?
Yep.
Not tonight. Yeah. We can always go back to that. I'll move to appoint Brian Calderwood, fire chief for a 3-year term.
Put you on the 3 then. A second?
And if, before you move on to your motion, if during your discussion you wanted to include the fire chief, he is on Zoom if you had any questions.
I do have some comments when, oh,
Go ahead.
the reason, I have no qualms about appointing Brian to 5 years based on Brian himself, but 5 years is a long time, and in 5 years, there's a possibility that none of us will be here. If that term would exceed or potentially exceed our existence. And I'm just, because of that, I'm more comfortable with a 3-year term, and that's been, I believe, his historical,
I think
at least for the past 2 years. So.
the same discussion I think was had before about exceeding our time. I think to make an appointment beyond what any of us would be here is almost unfair to the next board.
Again, nothing to do with Brian.
No. Chief, did you want to?
Yeah, go ahead, just unmute yourself. Oh, you're already unmuted.
Just waiting my turn. I understand what John's saying. It's been said in the past. I will strongly urge once again, whoops, hit the wrong button, that we change the fire ordinance because it's written in that way that you can be appointed up to 5 years and no less than 1. So just in the event that I am not reappointed after 3 years, if that's what I get tonight, that gets adjusted to go and coincide with what the board's been doing for the last few years. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Take that up at March town meeting, and I also agree with the coterminous aspect. So, there,
And then quickly, if I may, we do have the assistant ambulance director on. I can look into their appointment later after the fact, or have him see if he wants to provide any thoughts on that.
See if he was appointed in the past.
David, can you maybe unmute yourself and just recall when you were appointed last, or if you recall anything substantive for this conversation about your appointment as assistant ambulance director?
Amy had, when she took over, she just put me in as assistant director, as far as I know.
I haven't seen anything that had him as an appointed
All I
position.
know is for years, we appointed Pat and Rich, Pat and Rich, Pat and Rich. I mean, it's almost in my head. I'm not saying that we need to, as a matter of fact, probably my inclination. Typically, officers can appoint deputies, so, but I would just, since we've done it so often in the past, I was just curious. I don't want to prolong tonight's meeting.
We don't have any say, for example, in the
We used to do that too.
Yeah.
They would give us a slate of characters. Candidates, and we would appoint them, but, okay.
Thank you, David.
Yep, no problem.
Brian, did you have something?
Yeah, just for consistency, we don't, or the board doesn't appoint the deputy chief for the fire department. That comes under the department head, just for consistency, but enjoy your evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, I move that we appoint Betty Thomas as EMA director for 1-year term, 2021.
any discussion? All in favor? Ray Fisk's favorite EMA director.
He's great.
I'll move, we appoint Arthur Grierson, E911 coordinator for the term ending 2021.
A second?
Any discussion?
I do have discussion. Does this, what is the E911 coordinator doing these days? Is that still a necessary position?
Yes.
Nothing to do with
Basically,
that.
every time there's a new house or new construction, he has to assign the number.
Okay, so that's still
And I know he's done some house cleaning of numbers that Work
So
properly.
it's still an active position.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's overwhelmingly busy, but he does have occasional action.
And the only other thing that I'll say on that is when we met with the local roads folks, Jerry and I did a while back, they wanted to see if they could poke some holes in our addressing, and they were quite impressed at the level of which the E911 coordinator was on it. And my assumption being, this is also a member of our fire department, and I don't think that the fire chief or the fire department would look kindly on having to respond to a call and not knowing where it is. So it works very well that our E911 coordinator is also a
Don't
fire.
misconstrue, I wasn't suggesting that we, dismantle it, I was just curious if,
No,
you've heard stories of, they had a border guard between two countries that didn't exist for
Yeah.
200 years or something.
still drawing a picture.
All right, all in favor of Arthur Gerson's appointment? There's 38 years on the, 40 years on the fire department.
I move we appoint election warden Sandra Monahan for a term of 1 year to 2021.
Second, sorry.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, so I'm confused by this list,
The clerks,
because it's different from the one that's on the website.
right, the one on the website is not, I would say, the most current. The clerk does have the authority to appoint election clerks as.
You mean the ward or the town?
No, the town clerk. And we have broadened out the cadre of which we're looking for this upcoming election. So yes, it's not the same as it has been in previous years.
Okay, so the Democratic caucus, the town caucus, appointed Penny, Tisha Huffnagel, and I'm not sure who else.
Can I ask a question? The Democratic caucus appointed our election clerks?
What they do?
Do they actually appoint them or do they put them names?
Well, they put their names.
As a
forward to the board?
recommendation, yes, okay.
So who then makes the decision?
The select board, or the
You
clerk,
all-
go and say.
In the, until we get on to 3 days before election, you all aren't gonna meet again. We go through these people and every one of them says, I'm not available. Chelsea has the authority in those type scenarios to appoint as needed. Or we look at it and we had 2 Republicans to choose from and 2 Democrats. And we have enough clerks, but they're not balanced as per party affiliation. Again, Chelsea has the authority to make emergency, for lack of a better term, appointments. But primarily you all look at them and say, yes, these people are fine. That gives Chelsea the authority to contact any of them. But if we get to a situation to where they're not available, she can appoint additional clerks.
I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. It's just that, again, the website and this list are 2 different things. Tisha was here for the last election.
I think it's important. Let's keep this stuff cleaned up, I think.
Yeah.
It's very important.
I think once we appoint these, that we should get our website.
Walter?
Yep.
And Chelsea did reach out to us and offer us the opportunity to work or not work this coming election because of the special circumstances. So that might reflect the change in the roster.
Okay. They're all good people.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
No.
I'll make a motion to appoint an election clerks for a term ending 2021, Penny L, Philip Barrow, Michelle Ames, Brenda Kerr, and Thomas Gray.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Is that balanced?
When you take the election warden into consideration, yes. And it doesn't have to be balanced exactly. there needs to be a ratio.
Okay.
There are unenrolled folks in this list, there are Democrats, and there is a Republican.
Plus you have a Green Party. We used to have a clerk with a Green Party.
Not even gonna go.
I know,
All in favor? Okay, so
I move that we appoint Sandy Retzloff to the planning board as an alternate for a term of 3 years to 2023.
I'll second that, but I have discussion.
Okay.
I've spent a little bit of time trying to figure this out, and I talked to Owen, and I looked at the town report, and I just want to make sure, I don't wonder what you were just talking about, Walter. Making a mountain out of a molehill, no, just getting this cleaned up, but the planning board, I have Arlene Skakra and Diane Dowling going to 2021. Gabe, I don't know how to say his last name. Tomasulo and
Ryan Minikis.
Ryan, yeah. And Erwin Kerr is going to 2022. And you said Sonia Sleeper's term expired 2020, that jives in the town report, so that she's gone. So there are currently 5 members, if I have this correct. But the terms are not staggered. We have 1 member, we have 3 members in 22 and 2 in 21. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this is to plan, this is simply a motion to appoint Sandra as an alternate for a 3-year term. So we actually are missing an alternate, correct? Because the board, I think, has 5 members and 2 alternates.
There hasn't been a beating down of the doors for.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out if my math is correct. Okay, thank you.
So with Sonia's term expiring, why are we appointing Sandra as an alternate?
Only
Well, because
because
it's fine.
when Sandy and I called her up today. I wasn't able to talk with her.
Never mind, I answered my question, but John answered it for me. We have the 5 members that we need.
Right.
Without the alternate.
But we have no alternate.
So we're
Right.
short an alternate. Okay,
But there evidently were 6 members for a while. At least according to the town report, unless somebody else resigned. That's why I wanted to make sure.
nobody resigned. We, in addition to appointing Rebecca Taylor to a non-existent position last year, we appointed Ryan to a non-existent position. But now we're good. We over-appointed to the.
Okay, so
He was supposed to be an alternate. It didn't work out.
Okay, and so Sonia's term ending gets it back to 5.
Right.
So we're really just out of balance on 1 term, for lack of a better word, but we're close here.
Better than the budget committee.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and we could rectify that. We could, for example, draw straws and appoint the last person, of the 3 that end in 22 and appoint that person to 23 or something. But again, I don't want to make them out of a whole mold.
And there's definitely some additional cleanup work to do on length of terms. And I feel like I've got a much better handle on that now. And so in the coming months, I can communicate with members about their desires to stay on or not. And we can clean these up to have them be more staggered consistently, like we're going to do in the future with the budget committee.
Okay. All in favor? Planning Board of Appeals.
I would move that we appoint to the planning board of appeals Richard Reckler for a 2-year term to 2022, Jeff Northridge for a 3-year term to 2023, and John Hanson as alternate to the planning board for a 1-year term, 2021.
There is a second. And if I could have a question here as well, if I can find the field board. So just to make sure I got this right, so Barbara Noyes is
Next year.
next year. Ralph Winters is to 2022.
Correct.
That's 2 people. Jeff is to 2000. And if we approve this to 2023, so that's 3 people.
Yep, so we'll have
So
2 in 21, 2 in 22, and 1 in 23.
So, and Richard would go
22.
to 22, so that gives us 4 members, and John would drop down to an alternate. So we're short 1 member and 1 alternate.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Library director.
I move to appoint Penny Alley as library director for term ending 2021.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Penny.
I move to appoint Gerald Gershon as the demo debris director, actually within its functions, I think,
Second.
of the work. For a term of 1 year, so 2020.
Any discussion? All in favor?
And if you want to table Skip, I'm not sure. I know
I'm
that you
just looking to see
communicated.
if he has landed.
I didn't have any when I got,
My email.
when I went back into the office. I didn't see any.
See if he wants to be reappointed.
Oh, I'm sure he does, because he's in line to be chair after, Colson.
If they let him. He's in line, he's been in line for a long time.
Huh.
I
was
move-
on the board.
I'll move to appoint Skip Cornell for the solid, a member to the, what is it called? now?
Allison South
South Thomas and Solid Waste Cooperative for a term ending 2020.
Yeah, in fact, that's the way the appointment letter should read.
Yeah.
Solid waste facility. Yep.
Sorry, second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor? I think Skip will have the votes this time.
Good.
Cemetery overseer.
Yeah. I move that we appoint Penny Alley as cemetery overseer for a term of 1 year to 2021.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm just getting ready. I'm sorry.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
I guess I'm not getting ready. I guess I am voting. Before we leave the subject, though, I have a couple of questions, if I might. I know you appointed Chelsea tax collector and town clerk, but there was no term on it. I checked back and looked at the minutes. And it's not specified, her term is for a year.
Maybe that was just an error in my minute writing, but it was to the first meeting after town meeting of 2021.
Doesn't say that in the minutes. The February 18th minutes. So if you want to double check it, I mean, it's an easy fix. But if you want to double check that and look at the next meeting, I would propose that we appoint her to.
I was gonna say, no reason we couldn't reappoint tonight.
Well, and just in case I'm wrong, it
Right.
sounds like no one doesn't agree with me, but I did look at the minutes. And if I could get connected, I could.
That's fine. And I would then maybe have you all do the same thing for Mo as LPI CEO and local health officer, because at that meeting, we did Chelsea and Mo.
I didn't look at her. I just looked at. My suggestion would be we will bring this up at the next meeting. We have plenty of time to rectify it. I just didn't want February to go by, it lapses. And then all of a sudden she has no authority to be the tax.
Right. And then we had,
I know we appointed to 3 different positions at 3 different times, and so we really need to bring that up.
Yeah, that's true.
And if the minutes are incorrect, we could amend the minutes. There's two ways to fix it, I guess. Or you can tell me I'm crazy, Mr. Evans.
No.
Nope, minutes are not my strong point.
But I mean, the minutes are gonna be, they're gonna overweigh anybody's recollection, so. And then I have one other, if you could indulge me while we're talking about appointments, I just want to understand the budget committee. So you put in that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had, I made notes on this one, but I can't find it now.
So as of last week, the budget committee consists of Moira Paddock, Jeff Northgraves, Cliff Retzlaff, Beverly St. Clair, and let me, so Beverly was appointed to fill the slot of A. Bossier, who resigned.
So she's 22 then,
To finish out A's term,
Right.
which would have ended in 22.
is if that's, I don't have. it
Well, that's
right
what the
in front of
town-
me. Yep, then yes,
Okay.
yep.
So she's 22. And then Terry Baines was appointed,
Terry Baines was appointed to replace either Gail or Donna.
so that's a
In
term of
anticipation.
23, so I had that correct. Okay,
And then Camille and Kate were both appointed last year, and I don't know what the terms were.
22.
3 years.
So now we have this staggering.
And Alan Hall, you said Alan Hall.
Yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 9 expiring in 1 year. So I would suggest at a future meeting that we either draw lots or we take the last 3 that were appointed and move them to whatever, to 23 or something to get it back.
I agree.
Not tonight. That's late.
And there's also 1 slot open. And the rumor is that there's several people interested, but I haven't heard.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're right.
There was an individual who displayed an interest, but I have not heard specifically from her that she wants to put her name forward. I provided her resources and information. We've talked a handful of times. But I will communicate with her again, and then when we do our cleanup work next month, I'll bring any additional names. The call for, there were 2 committees that you wanted, call for help on.
Yep.
That notice is still up down at the gig store.
Still on the website. Thank you for indulging my
Thank you for
detail.
extensive preparation for your first meeting. Helpful. Where did we put? Oh, never mind. Let's stay on the agenda, on the list here.
Yeah, and the 2 new items we'll just put after the end of MMA or legislative policy,
Okay.
LPC.
All right. Stump dump, mattress fee.
Yep.
Move that we adopt a change to stump dump. I get the right name for it, stump dump. Operations and maintenance manual for the demolition debris disposal facility. As we modify it to add a fee for mattresses of $10. And we need to change the date effective. Right now, it says effective January 20th, 1993. It would be effective tonight if we pass it.
The only thing that I would offer as a recommendation is that go into effect August 1st or 30 days after tonight. It just gives us enough time to communicate with the public the fee change and print up vouchers that we would need for that. They open for business tomorrow. We have not communicated to the public and don't have vouchers yet made up to be able to do that. So if August 1st is is
For the
what.
manual, I would make it effective tonight, but you can institute it whenever you're prepared.
Okay, yep.
And my thought-
Ken, you want a second, don't you?
I do.
Okay, I'll second it. I have discussion. Okay.
I need to go back to the prior thing, so go ahead and finish this. and then-
Okay, I caught the date issue too, and my proposed solution would be to put an asterisk next to the mattresses and simply say, and put it right in there, and just simply say, mattresses effective August 1st or whatever it is you want, 2020, because I do think we should keep the date in there of how long we've had the fee as it currently is.
Yeah, I don't even think those fees have been there since '93, though. I think we changed those fees in the last. couple of
And
years.
that's the latest document that I have, and I did not go and comb through.
Then that-
So you can see the revisions.
That confuses my thinking.
Yeah. The revisions on the front, you know, that gives me a really good starting place. I
Yeah,
just didn't have the time
I
to
think
dig into it.
2018 is when we changed
Okay,
some of those fees. That's why at this time I circled it and I said,
Yeah.
we ought to reestablish them all at some point.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, I do think though that we should have an effective date in here. I think it kind of puts Owen potentially in a bad spot if we kind of makes him the boogeyman, so to speak. But if we say it's effective so and such and such a date, you know,
Oh, yeah, I agree.
okay.
I would propose the effective date be tonight when we pass it, but we can implement it whenever the.
Well, I guess that's my point. I think if we make it effective tonight, but then he doesn't make it, implement it for a couple of months, I think it puts him in a spot.
I don't
A good
think,
spot, if anything, right?
yeah, people aren't gonna
Yeah, too
complain
much
that
separation.
we're
Alright,
waiving
well,
the fee, but
Well, otherwise, you're gonna pass it tonight, and it's not gonna be effective until whenever he gets around to it.
No, he suggested a date.
You suggest a date?
August 1st or 30 days, which would be August 7th. Either is fine by me.
I just feel we should put a specific date in. when it's effective.
Okay, again, it's not something I want to belabor. August 7th is fine with me. Or I would say within 30 days, we could.
So a friendly amendment to your motion?
A friendly amendment to my motion.
No, amendment to my second.
Amended to be
Any
effective.
further discussion? All in favor? Penny,
I'm a little slow, I'm sorry. The appointment to the joint board of the Georges River Shellfish Management Ordinance.
I brought that up with Walter when we talked today. That I don't have my arms around completely. And though that's why I left it off tonight. I don't have a full understanding of how that all goes, and I
One of
just,
them has to do it.
I was gonna say we lost Cheryl, but that's
one of us has
okay.
It has to be a select board member. My question is, and it's been such a long time, I was wondering about the alternate to.
There's actually a lot of people listed. That was another confusion. There's like
Yeah,
5
3
different
people
people listed under that committee, and I'm not sure. I know
Now,
Cheryl's been
there's the
going.
Shellfish Committee that we could have numerous members too, but the joint board is one representative from each of the 5
Oh.
towns and one alternate. And for the past however many years Cheryl's been here, it's
Right.
been Cheryl
Uh-huh.
and with me as the alternate. And
So you sent me a thing that was different from that. Some
Well-
different
Yeah, because I
organizations.
think what I was looking at was the committee and not the board. And that's where I started to get confused. I thought that the committee was more constrained, but I had this whole list of, or I'm sorry, I thought the board was constrained, but I had this big list of folks that are listed as the Shellfish Committee, and I was getting confused, and I didn't have time enough to.
the Shellfish Committee meets and reports to the joint board. The joint
Okay.
board is one select board member from each of the 5 participating towns.
But there's only 2 listed in the town report, Carolyn Nagel and Travis Fogg, as committee members.
Yeah.
Right.
And then in our internal, we had taken, because I was getting confused with the appointments. So we had town staff comb through all of the appointments and create an Excel spreadsheet that helped me manage that. And through that, I think the person who worked on that previously also wasn't overly familiar with the committee versus board nature of that position.
It is confusing.
So we need a select board member to be on the safety committee. And I'm still serving my sentence on the transfer station board, so I'm gonna exempt myself from that one. Anybody going over yourself, this person?
Well, we got trash, we got airport.
Ah,
It's kinda,
I would almost suggest that you table this one till the next meeting and perhaps talk to Karen Nagel about being the alternate to the board member and having her serve on the joint board because has been on the clan committee, the shellfish committee, for so many years. She could step into that position with quite a working knowledge of the whole
As the
program.
alternate. As the alternate,
Yeah, but
which means the selectman could volunteer for it and then not have to go.
and my only question being, I don't know enough about that board specifically to know if us tabling this until next month puts them out in any decision making. That would be the only reason to maybe not table it tonight. Do they need us right now? Are they in the middle of a lot of stuff they're gonna need our
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that it's a fairly quiet time right
loose,
now,
yeah.
but-
Then we can just, I can provide much better information at next meeting, both with the committee, the board. We'll clean up budget, we'll clean up a lot of this stuff, have our internal records be easier so that we're staggering these and making sure we're catching all of them.
Where do they meet these days? Is anyone, who's the host town now?
Thomaston.
Supposed to move those. I mean,
Yeah, but they do it on a 3-year, they have one town manager for 3 years and then it goes to the next town. So we're not projected for like 6 or 9.
Right, because I think we had it before.
Yeah, so
When I-
Thomaston is like clerical agent. I don't know if that means they meet in Thomaston, but as far as fees that are paid and the administrative purposes, Thomaston has it for the next year at least, if not 2 years.
Well, they typically met with wherever the host community was, because the records were there and, you know.
And then I believe it's going to St. George.
I believe you're correct. We just,
I think it is.
I know we don't get it for a while. That's what I know.
Okay, yeah, let's put it on the cleanup.
Yep.
We don't need to table anything because it wasn't on there.
Correct. Are we moving on, Mr.
Yep.
Chair? All right, so again, my apologies. We've had a lot of things going on, so sorry for not getting the community room policy transcribed into a Word document.
Let me speak to that. So you don't have this in a Word document?
No, I only ever found it in PDF. I looked around.
I have it in a Word document.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I wrote it.
Oh, great.
So I saw that on your email. I didn't realize that. We made it a PDF, so it couldn't be changed.
Oh,
You know, but
And I
I'm
just-
sure I still have it as a Word document,
and in
because I would have had Word.
in all of our N Drive stuff that we have, it's only in PDF form. I tried to find it in Word document. I
How about
just
this
couldn't.
operations manual? Do you have that?
Oh, yes, yep.
That was a question I had earlier. I'm sorry.
No, that one was easy. The formatting was weird on that. They didn't put page numbers at the bottom. They actually entered the page number. So when I went and moved and added things, I had to basically reformat the whole demolition debris policy to be just easier to manipulate and
The thing
amend.
you'll
over
find
time.
is you probably pick up some documents in there and like Word perfect, or Word 95 or something.
Yeah.
And the formatting changes dramatically.
It really, I had to like copy and paste certain blocks because there were things that I couldn't make go away. And every time I added it, it went all crazy.
So, is there a proposed amendment?
The only proposed amendment would be under user fee and adding some language around when deemed appropriate by the select board, that a new fee for cleaning not be waiverable, because we're gonna wanna see that if this room under times like this is cleaned to a degree to which the ambulance service, emergency personnel, town staff feels that they can come into this room and it's not compromised after the general community came in. And so I don't want to put that on a subdivision association that's coming in to do, I was contacted by an association, they want to do something in September, it was plenty of lead time. And I said, that's a good thing. We probably gonna have to clean everything afterwards. We have this deposit. And then under the asterisks for both of them, it says refund dependent on proper use and cleanliness of the space. I think everyone does a great job leaving this room as good as they found it, but they're not gonna have the capabilities to go around and desanitize everything. We now have that as an in-house capability on the ambulance itself. It's an alcohol sprayer, pressure washer
See, I
type
think
thing.
this speaks to that. That means you would not refund it. If in fact we're in a situation like we are now, it would be dependent upon proper use and cleanliness of the spaces, and you would say you can't clean them to the standard. So we're gonna continue. This was really a cleaning issue. The whole reason we put fees in there wasn't a make money for the town thing. This was all about, first of all, putting value to it. So we didn't want it to be free because free things get treated like they're free. But also, to make sure we had money to clean it. So, I hear what you're saying, but when I read it, I said, gee, didn't we put that in there? And my thought was that the cleanliness of the spaces, if you're now raising the standard and saying, well, they have to be sprayed with the disinfectant and so on, then you wouldn't refund that if you're paying somebody to come in and do that.
And that's fine. If it's unanimity amongst the board on how I interpret this, as long as I know that from you all, then I'll just communicate with folks reaching out, wanting to, that, hey, at this time, we're not going to waive the cleaning fee because we have to do it to a certain
I think that's
specification.
reasonable.
Okay,
I
then
think,
that,
I think you need to tell them ahead of time.
Right.
yeah. And really, it's been one individual reaching out about September. And so
And
they
maybe
aren't
by
banging
then-
down the door.
Was it South Thompson resident?
Correct.
Why
So-
we got this in front of us though? Oh, sorry.
Yep, no. And any, as far as the demolition debris or this document, if there's other amendments or changes.
But, and I think there is in this one, now that you brought it up, I think number 7, we need to fix because we've still got, there is no alcohol allowed to be consumed in the building. And
Well-
we clearly, once again, are making an exception to the Lions
However, this is the community, well, yeah, that's where it gets into,
Club.
this is the community
And that's what I-
run,
Okay, that's
we
what
speak
my
to the
amendment would
building.
be, there is no alcohol allowed and no smoking. And leave it.
Well, I had the same question, but it was a different, about 7, but is smoking allowed anywhere on the grounds here now?
No.
And this says, no
I don't know how
smoking
you'd
is
ever
allowed
enforce that.
inside the building, which implies to me that it's allowed outside. I think we should, if we're gonna clean it up, I think we should say, no smoking on the building or grounds.
Well,
Because it even says, please
Yeah.
do not discard smoking for outside of building.
yeah.
I think we should strike that.
I don't know how you'd ever enforce that.
Well,
I mean,
I
At least,
enforcement's
at
always-
least if they're using the building, you can enforce it, but somebody standing out in their car and flicking a cigarette in the parking lot, you could do that.
enforcement's always an issue, but if you get a gang hanging around the front door smoking, at least it gives, having sat in that seat before, it's nice to have something to say.
Oh, you know what your enforcement is? The asterisk. Refund dependent on proper use and cleanliness of the space.
Again, that's true.
But I think even if the ambulance people are here, the ambulance director, she could say, you guys know there's no smoking allowed here. I mean, she doesn't have to get into a confrontation with them, but I mean, I just don't think because we think we might struggle to enforce it is not a good reason not to do it.
And do we have a phone in here anymore? Do we?
Put Jack in here, we can put a phone in here.
Oh, okay, so we'll keep number 9.
I also have one question too. In the third sentence down, it says, on a not to interfere basis, the community room may be available to use by South Thompson residents. But then right down below, it says there's a fee for non-residents. That seems
Do you just want
internally
to,
inconsistent.
you want to
I'm missing
strike
something.
after available?
Well, I'm just questioning, am I missing something or?
Yeah, good point. Good catch.
So,
I don't know that we ever wanted to even open it up to non-residents.
But yeah, we put it right in the fee schedule.
Yeah, I see that.
But what about the shelter, the aquaculture hearings and stuff? Does that come under this? The community room used for,
I suppose if I hadn't considered that, and it was because it was the state that was requesting the use for a public hearing that was applicable to South Thomaston residents, I did not charge them a fee for the use of the room. But I looked at guidance on that. It was Department of Marine Resources doing a public hearing in here for South
That's gonna
Thomaston.
happen from time to time. I hate not to be good partners with,
I had at the Historical Society, the Maine Fishing Families Coalition booked room, because this room was already booked, to do a pre-meeting to the DEP meeting. So I don't know if that's, you know, one of the kind of exceptions you would make to the rule, or if that's what would fall under non-resident use.
Right.
I think on the residence issue, I don't think we should necessarily make it just available to residents. I think there are organizations that, I mean, where do they reside? I don't know, you know?
We have had.
And if the room's free, it's not a huge revenue source, but you know, we're paying to keep the lights on is about it.
So I would have just said, on a not to interfere basis, the community room may be available for use. And just strike. I mean, I just don't think I want to see us cut it off to everybody who's not a resident. Does that mean a person who's, you know, I don't know, has a summer home here, you know? Are they a resident? No.
Yeah, another good point. Well, maybe that's why we left it in. I can't remember
Yeah,
back that far. I'm sure there was discussion about it.
so those are my two thoughts.
And can I get just the final clarity on number 7, exactly how you want to see that worded when I get my hands on the Word document?
Yeah, I would say there is no alcohol or smoking allowed, period.
On
But
town
there's a
property?
specific exception in the
Well,
lease with the line.
Again, you're walking down a real fine line there.
I thought this was just about the community room.
Yeah,
Right.
so,
So
But
it
if
is
you're gonna be in an open
community room
ground,
guidelines.
I feel fairly strong that we shouldn't be allowing smoking outside the doors and stuff for people that are using this room. You know, if you want to make it 20 feet from an entranceway or something, I mean, that's a compromise.
Yeah, I'm just not sure this is the document to put it. I hear what you're saying. You want this to just relate to this room.
Well, then we should strike the word building. Yeah, because it says in the building, it doesn't say in the community.
Well, I did strike it. All I would say is there is no alcohol or smoking allowed. Period.
it's the community area use guidelines. Of course, a former select board member told me that we couldn't ban alcohol without a town meeting. That it wasn't our purview.
I'm good with that. I mean, if that moves us along. And I think if we
And
end
I
up-
would, your recommendation to just delete by South County residents, I think, just end it with a period.
Yeah.
Maybe available for use. I'm pretty sure I've got this one. I'll go back through my stuff.
So do you want a motion on as amended or? Something as amended.
Yeah, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Great, and the amendment is striking by South Thomaston residents and having number 7 read, there is no alcohol or smoking allowed, period.
Correct, right. That's right, everything after, that's my understanding.
Okay, and I just did get an email from Skip Connell, and he said, yes, fine, reappoint me. There were some other
Two items.
other words in there as well, but we don't. Okay.
Thanks, Penny.
Thank you.
See you, Penny.
MMA has their legislative policy committee. There's one representative per county. It's a 2-year position. I'm sure that Knox County, from the 18 towns, unorganized territories, will have other nominees, but if you had someone that you wanted to be nominated, they just need to know by July 13th.
I'm not interested, and I think Jay Filer is doing a great job. I assume he'll want to be on it again. He's very involved, so
Oh, and I'm sorry, it's not the county, I'm sorry, it's the
The
Senate
Senate
district. Yeah,
that's almost the same as this county.
almost, except for my hometown of Washington.
I agree.
John, I personally am not interested. The name that came to mind when I read through this was Jeff Northbury, so I don't have any history with it, so.
It's quite a commitment when the legislature's in session. I was on it back in the 90s. The drive to Augusta on wintry days and
Okay. You answered that question for me. Great, thank you.
I provided just the most recent, I might have gotten one since then, but just the MMA update, COVID update. That was just more of a communication. I don't know if you all get those from Steve.
yeah, we do.
Yeah, okay, great. And then we had the 2 items that were added to the agenda.
The contract, you need to
They were,
vote on the, to allow that money at 27,000.
yep, and then discussion about the commitment date or setting a meeting for, you can take it up either scheduling future meetings or a specific commitment agenda item if you want to.
Don't we have H and we need to deal with?
Old business?
This is new
Oh,
business. Yep.
Okay, okay.
I've confused you with
You
putting
already-
old business under new business, I know.
We did reverse them.
I'll fix that next time and have old business be its own separate item.
Also, I move that, I'm sorry, ready for that? I move that we approve the allotment of, what do they call it? Okay. I move that we accept the we don't have to accept the bid, that was done by their board. Okay, let's make this not as hard. I move that we approve payment of $27,596.45 to the Owl's Head South Thomaston Cooperative Transfer Station Board. And that the money come from the Owl's Head South Thomaston Reserve Account.
Second.
I won't do anything about this until the other 2 towns weigh in.
Right.
Owl's Head's in the game for sure. Thomaston I was worried about, but Kara George,
Well, I'm saying, and I read the wrong amount.
she was concerned that they had to do this at their town meeting, which of course is like far away. And I pointed out to her that no, they set up a reserve. So their select board can do the same thing that you guys are about to do, just allocate from that reserve. So I got an encouraging.
Exact purpose that we set it up.
Yeah, I got an encouraging email from her. By the way, I'm in a dual fiduciary role here, so I'm not gonna vote.
I need to amend my.
I agree with you that the select board doesn't need to go to town meeting, although I think traditionally we have here, but since it was so well explained just a few days ago that we're gonna be drawing down on this, I'm more than comfortable with voting. I don't have that letter though. Again, my wife was on the computer. It came late and I couldn't print it, so I kind of don't know exactly what I'm voting on.
Yeah. So there's 3 amounts on the letter you'll see, and I need to amend my motion because I actually read the Owl's Head amount.
Oh,
So the motion is to approve expenditure of $27,183.02 to the Owl's Head South Thomaston Cooperative Transportation Board. That says payment is our portion of the new contract for equipment.
You can have that,
okay.
I'm sure it's on your computer.
You comfortable with an amended second of it?
I am, yeah.
Just the dollar amount.
So, I do have discussion. Go ahead. If they don't change that sign over there, I'm gonna vote against that. I'm only kidding.
Which sign? When
The
it
one that
says-
says Thomas and Transfer.
I'm rising in importance on that board, so I will take that up.
That falls in line with the discussion I had with,
I think I sent you a picture.
with Jeff Northgrave about all the communication I did around town meeting said at the Knox County Regional Airport, comma, located in Owl's Head. We had a discussion about Owl's Head kind of territorial staking claim to that airport as though it is theirs, even though not even all of the airport grounds is within.
Oh,
Owl's
South
Head.
Thomaston too.
No, we have some in our municipal borders.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, so in addition to us bordering it, it crosses over. We have many, many acres that are located within South Thomaston.
You wanna call for a vote or you?
Yes,
want
it's been moved and seconded and discussed. All in favor? Thank you.
201. Commitment,
But
did you
never
want,
doubt that my primary loyalties are here, not to them.
I would move that we recommit to Chelsea.
did you, I'm sorry to interrupt, sir, but the conversation about setting the tax commitment date, did you want to take that under scheduling of meetings or as the new agenda item like we talked about in the beginning?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, no,
Okay.
so we know what the date is.
Yep,
July something,
21st.
and it will be during the day.
Yes, we have not, the only thing that Kevin, our assessor for lack of a better term, all he wanted to know was as soon as we know the vote on the 14th that it has passed, he said he has penciled us in for the 21st. We'll finalize everything right after we know it's passed.
Well, you're gonna do that before you get their assessment? Formal assessment?
No, we have the formal assessment.
No, you don't. They can't issue that until after the budget passes. Sign it, send it to
So the vote is the referendum on
them. I
that.
understand. And then the board, after gets together and signs a document called an assessment, right? They send you that assessment. And I just would hate to set the tax rate and then for some crazy reason, oh, we found a mistake.
However you all
Yeah,
want
I
to do
don't
it
know.
is
I'm just-
fine. I don't know when the date of that meeting is, John, do you,
There's meeting, no, I don't.
to sign off on it?
The 16th,
So 2 days after.
that would sound.
Oh, I think they want to sign on it quickly because I would assume they're not getting any money.
Okay, then what I can do is I can communicate with Kevin and say, keep us penciled in, but change that to permanent pencil after the 14th, and then I'll just reconfirm after their vote on the 16th.
Or you can talk to Peter and ask him when you anticipate will get your assessment. It's a thing that comes and has the 12 divided
Yeah.
payments, and. What was I looking at? Oh, the date.
But yeah, Walter, as far as the timing on the 21st, we have not gotten into exactly. My understanding from last year is that early afternoon seems to make sense. It allows the assessor to come in, get their ducks in a row, get the documents worked up, see if there's any additional things that you all want to see as options when it comes commitment time. And it gives them a chance to get everything in order for an early afternoon meeting during
Right.
business
That
hours.
was a bit of a scramble last year. So
We did on the 31st last year.
Chicken tie these things. What I'd like to do is let the budget committee know that it's happening and zoom any of them in. Or have them come in, any of them come in person, especially the newbies, because I'd like them to go through the process. They can see the end result of what they do. They may not show up, but and Moira will say, can't you please have this at night?
I have a medical appointment that morning that probably won't get over to about noon time. So,
Like I said, I think last time it was like noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
yeah, noon's probably gonna be pushing it.
Yep, but we can, definitely 2 o'clock is fine, as long as that works for the other board members. And I would maybe notice it as a workshop for the budget committee, but a meeting of the select board.
So we're gonna pencil it in for 2. Is that right?
Sounds good.
Good week.
What did I gloss over? Recommit?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're discussing.
Okay. Recommitting the taxes to Chelsea.
Oh, now we're on to that?
I was gonna move that we recommit to Chelsea the real estate taxes. And then we hold off on the personal property tax.
Can you read the dollar amount of the recommitted taxes just for?
Yeah. It's like property tax due, is that what you want?
Yes.
Or balance due with interest? That, wait a minute, she's adjusted it with abatement, so.
Did you give us some information too? If you dug out something.
From the legal is
I
what?
think you did.
Yep.
Oh, this is not a quick read.
No, it's not.
Oh, this is MMA.
Yep.
That's it.
I don't, I would support Walter's motion because, actually, did you make a motion?
Jan did.
I was in the process of putting a dollar amount, and I'm not sure which dollar amount to put, because I'm not sure what she's included in these dollars. The property tax due amount is $194,047. And she's got an adjusted abatement, which is a minus $8,503. And then a balance due with interest is $185,023.71. This is the 2019 real estate collection. Okay. What I'm looking at once, where do you get that number from? That's different than anything she's got in there.
So
Well,
this is the actual certificate of settlement document.
What does that include? Real estate? Or does that include the real estate and the property? It's real and personal property. See, that figure doesn't match either of these.
Well, it may not include the interest, I'm not sure. I think this is.
So without interest, it's 175 on the sheet that she gave us tonight.
Does that include the personnel? Did I look at that sheet?
Can you look at it?
I don't have it.
Oh, sir.
Oh, it's all right.
That number matches this highlighted number.
Yeah, but these aren't anything that she gave us tonight. Those came, like, a couple of weeks ago.
No, this is as of July 7th.
Okay, we don't have those. How do you have them? We don't have them.
Because these are the signing papers. I'm not.
Is that the settlement document? let John.
See, I have one here, which was dated the 9th of June, which is 191,000. So how did you get to 176,000?
Well, I think it's the 175, 890.04 plus this 923.04. It looks like, let me add,
None of the numbers match, I can tell you that. On this sheet that she gave us dated today, that I got tonight, this shows $194,047. On another sheet, I've got $191,038. On another sheet, I've got $176,000.
no, that doesn't add up either. That's 175.
Did you get one of these, John?
Yeah, I did have that. That's what she passed out first.
Tonight, yeah.
Hey, can I put you on speakerphone and you can help us work through these documents to get them back to the community? Okay, she doesn't have the documents right in front of her, but she can do her best at trying to provide some clarity. Does that work, or do you want to take a different course?
Two with a recollection.
Okay, hang on. There's great reception in this room.
Sorry, the reception's really slow right now.
Hey, I was just saying the same thing.
So we're trying to make the motion with the right dollar amount for the 2019 taxes.
Real estate tax.
Real
Real
estate,
estate
taxes.
We've got different numbers, Chelsea, that's what we're looking at.
And by different numbers, there is the document that you printed up that has folks' individual names to them. There's a non-interest due amount, a balance amount, but on the certificate of settlement, the number is slightly different. You have the certificate of recommitment as well. The certificate of recommitment and certificate of settlement both have the same number, $176,813.97. Is that the number?
Yeah, when I ran the, Phil and I ran the numbers and I think there was 97 or 98. So there's a part
Okay,
of a cent there.
penny,
But
yeah.
is there a bigger discrepancy than?
On the bottom of the sheet that lists tax year 2019 and then has the individuals named,
Yes, yep, the status was from, printout from Trio as of today.
yep, the non-interest due amount is 175,890, which is different than the certificate, which is 176,813.
It's the commitments including the non-interest due balance from the personal property. That should be equal to.
But it didn't add up. That's what I thought, and it didn't add up.
Now, but are you doing the total of the personal property taxes or the total minus what was requested to be
I
written
added
off?
the two non-interest due.
The two, you're saying the two non-interest due is equaling that 176 number?
Nope, it's close. I thought that's what it was. That's why I added them together. Let me do it again, because maybe I fat fingered the calculator
Okay,
here.
so, because Phil and I ran it on the adding machine, but I mean, it was kind of
Hang on.
erroring at the end of the day, and
Yeah, let me
I'm
just,
not satisfied with errors.
I could be wrong. So I come up with 176,813.98.
That's what I
That's the
thought.
1 penny difference that she's talking.
Right, and that's what, and so Trio adds it as a
Okay.
97, but if you actually add it, it becomes 98.
Okay, so,
So I'm not sure where the discrepancy is within that penny, but I did see the note. from
no,
Lois
I'm not
that
worried
said
about the
that
penny. Forget the,
but it's
forget,
gonna be 98 cents.
forget the penny. When I added it before, it was off more than that, but it does, I must have added wrong. So the 175,890.94 does include, excuse me, the one, whatever that number was, I want you.
Yep.
The 176, and
That includes the personal property tax.
that's correct.
Okay. So if we want to just recommit the real estate taxes, the number we should use is 175,890.94.
It would be, yes, whatever the non-issued balance is on the bottom of the real estate tax collection status printout from Trio.
But I know we want to also, see, this is 2019.
Yeah.
So the write-off recommendation.
Yeah, the write-off is separate.
2018.
Okay, I
So
didn't know.
we
that.
should do
Yeah.
this entire amount.
Okay, I didn't realize that. I don't think I have all the documents here, so. I don't have a right.
Say that again.
So this document here, which has the 175,890.94
Mhm.
for real estate, plus the non-interest due personal property tax, these are both 2019 delinquencies.
Right.
Okay.
So we should recommit those. You
Okay.
should go after those.
Which is separate from this packet that I have, which is all the personal property taxes, which are past this point, and would be another consideration for writing them off, because they're basically uncollectible.
But I don't have a write-off document or whatever you're.
That's what this is. Like,
Oh,
but it sounded like you all were
No,
gonna
that-
table the write-off. So this is 13,
okay, see, but I didn't have the sticky one.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
So my thoughts were, we're still within a window of acting, if you will, present tense on the 2019 personal property, was just getting guidance going forward
Yep,
with how you want to do those collectibles.
yep, okay, so I think we're.
Chelsea, the only question that I have, so I can let you go, if we get to personal property taxes and writing those off, checking these numbers out.
Which years?
Yeah, we have 13, but then it jumps to 15. What's going on with 14?
14 was collected
Okay,
to
okay.
completion.
Yep, okay then all this makes sense. I was just like, 14 wasn't included in it.
Right.
Okay, well, I can make my motion to recommit to Chelsea. The total amount of $176,813.98 or 7 cents, depending on which one.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Here's the next
That's the 1919
Real estate and personal
real
property.
estate and personal property, yes.
All in favor?
Did you all want to take up the writing off of 13, 15, 16, 17, 18 personal property taxes?
I'm very interested in hearing what John has to say.
Well,
about
I'd
this.
like to discuss it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I'm ready to approve it yet.
I'm not ready to approve it either. The only one down there that's out of business is Sprucehead Pizza.
Well,
Chipper's Auto Body, Maine Coast Seafood, which seems to be a repeat offender almost every year, is still in business, still there, still.
Well,
working.
Russell Montgomery is out of business. He owned the store over on 131 for a while, but he's right down in St. George. I saw him the other day.
Yeah.
I guess, if you're looking for discussion on this, I guess I just have a philosophical issue with someone just ignores our tax bill, and then we say 6, 7, 5 years later, okay, fine, you don't have to pay it, we're gonna write it off. I did see Chelsea gave us something, a large document here that I haven't had a chance to read, but I did see a quote from the statute. It said minor or burdensome amount is not collected after the date for perfection of collections. Municipal office may discharge collectors from any obligation to collect unpaid personal property taxes if the municipal office determined are too small or too burdensome to collect. So there's actually two conditions. There are two separate conditions as I read it, because it uses the word or. To collect economically and authorize the municipal treasurer to remove those taxes from the municipal books. I guess, I don't know where I guess I don't know where too small lies, but burdensome I get. But on the other hand, I'm worried about the methods we have. Particularly since, as you say, 3 or 4 of these are still operating in town.
I also don't really know what effort we've made to collect this money. What have we done? I mean, in the normal thing is, do we send them once a year a bill and they don't pay it, and that's all we do? So there's been no threat of,
And it's one of the things that we've tried not to do is kind of really deconstruct why things were or were not done. This
I'm
is
not trying
something
to
that,
determine why things weren't done.
right,
Trying to determine what was.
correct. We would be communicating with these individuals stuff from 2013, 15. It's not to say that we can't.
I add it all up and to say, hey, you owe us X amount of dollars covering the year 2013 to 2019.
I think there have been some collection efforts on these. I don't think they've been formal efforts. I think there have been some letters sent to some of them. I recall some, but it's difficult. They're difficult to collect. I get that, and but I'm
Why? Tell me why. Why is it difficult?
well, because there's several different ways you can.
More than real estate taxes?
Yeah, because real estate, you end up taking their property. Place a lien on it, forecloses automatically.
And you couldn't put a lien on their property?
Well, it is, but there's no way to enforce it. You've got to either go to court or do what they call restrain them, which actually goes in and takes the property. A lot of times the property is long gone. It's been sold in upstate New York or something. I mean, it's not like a piece of land that doesn't move around. So, but in this case, I'm not sure that is the case because we have several businesses that are still operating.
I drive by Chippers Auto all the
And
time.
and I guess my question is, why do we need to write them off? Why can't we just keep bugging them? If we don't want to spend, and should we threaten them with a small claims action? We don't have to do it, we can.
There's also, I'm sorry to interrupt, I think this is a lawyer's letter that I distributed.
Yeah,
There's also a
I haven't had-
statute of limitations.
I haven't had a chance to read that though, it's long, so.
I haven't either.
I guess,
Sorry, but just, I believe there's a 6-year limit on going after collectibles.
but there's also the statute on the proper way to write them off, and I'm not sure we have done that. Which I didn't bring with me. I guess at a minimum, I'd make a motion to table this to our next meeting, so we can
Digest it more.
digest it more. Unless
Well,
you or Chelsea tell us that there's some,
no, all I would maybe ask for is that after you're done with your tabling motion, you all indicate to us what general posture you want us to have, so that when we do come back next meeting and you ask the question about what efforts were done, that we just feel that we have the backing of the board for nasty grams that we send out or certified letters, or the efforts that we take to try to collect these between now and then, provide you all with better information.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, but if, going after them through civil court is gonna be an expense.
well,
Town, I would imagine as well, and then the other point might be talking to the assessor's agent, just to make sure that going forward, things aren't, new businesses are being assessed correctly, how it's all going down from his point of view, might be a good conversation, just to make sure that it's equitable across the town.
That is one thing, as far as the collectibles, going back as far as we have records of, we just didn't know how far down that road you all want us to go. However, we did talk with the assessor about how personal property taxes go, how people account for these
we're
things.
getting into a
when
whole
the-
other subject now.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we'd like some guidance. We're about to do the commitment.
I know.
And so guidance on what we also ask our assessor to put time into to make sure that what we're assessing for personal property tax is actually equitable. When was the last time we sent out a letter saying, please tell us the equipment that you have?
They're required to do that by law. The onus is on them.
Right.
But that's a different, so how we, that's a conversation you have with your assessor, David.
Right.
Not with your tax collector.
Right, and I broached that with Kevin, and it was a little bit unclear. I kind of walked away a little bit more confused.
Yeah, and I'm personally not suggesting that we won't write these off, and I'm not really asking, just personally speaking for myself, I'm not asking you to do anything in the next month. We haven't done anything on some of them in
I'm not
10
either.
years.
I'm not
I just want to understand it a little better.
But I'd like to
Before
know
I-
is historically what's been done. If you can find that
I'm
out.
gonna have to kind of defer to whatever John said, because we didn't, and Chelsea, correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't come across any significant sanctioned efforts by the town to collect these monies.
And I think you're correct. I don't think there's been any small claims actions. I don't think there's been any,
No, I would.
but I do think there have been some letters sent out. I mean, how many?
Wouldn't you have those in the correspondence file?
They should be
I would
here. I
think
mean,
so.
I don't know, but.
Back in 2013.
Or 15, or 17, or 18? I don't know.
And I also would,
I don't know if it's in a separate file called, personal property taxes, or in a general file.
Right, and who would be the legal authority to try to collect those taxes where they want mine to go after?
well, right now they're committed to Owen. Correct? Didn't we have that discussion?
Yes, I would have to go deep into the brain housing group to figure out exactly what was recommitted to me, but I don't believe in any of the documents that were signed off on it included any reference beyond the 18 taxes, the remaining 18 taxes, because I took over at 19.
Well, maybe some of them are committed to me.
Yeah, who knows, right? So,
And the other thing is let's not reinvent the wheel. Every town must be dealing with it. You're connected to Rockport and Camden and these other towns.
Yep.
Talk to somebody. Hey, how are you handling this? How do you handle personal property tax?
They get them assessed, but then they need to write them off at year end, which is June 30, because they don't feel like they can be fair in their assessments of who has what piece of property. So that's what they choose to do at home.
So a company that never has paid it, like we've got two here that looks like they've gone multiple years, they won't pay it this year either, or next year. So I guess at this point, we just say they're exempt from that tax? I mean, Chippers hasn't paid it, and Maine Coast Seafood hasn't paid it for a number of years. I don't think they're gonna pay it this year. And why would they pay it next year? They've been getting away with it for 5 years.
And if we write them off, they're picking up.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, I like that idea. I'd like to avoid my taxes too.
Just ignore it.
Look how long I could go and just avoid it before the town would come after me.
Well, I'd make a motion, we table this matter to the next meeting.
Thank you, Chelsea.
thank you, Chelsea.
But not
Thank
looking
you
for
very
any
much.
action
Have
at
a
this
good
point.
evening.
Too.
Other than some historical context.
Did you second his motion?
His motion to table, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I did not. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Not a good document to drop on somebody walking in here cold.
No,
John's not cold. He's just.
no, it's not that at all. It's really the, as I said before, the major thing is I just don't like the message.
I agree.
I don't care if you carry them for 50 years.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's almost the principle of the thing. Okay, I can't explain.
Thanks to Amy, we did a tremendous job of cleaning up the ambulance write-offs.
Yeah, I didn't like those either.
That I understand. That's a whole different general fish. Not a tax.
The expertise there is knowing how to cover it.
Okay.
She also brought a lot of it in before we had to write it off.
Man, what a mess I
So do I. As usual, I've lost my agenda. Where are we on?
We are at correspondence, which we had none, and then reports, minutes, and scheduling future meetings.
Is Mo coming in on Wednesdays?
Yes, though we have talked about her possibly, she hasn't made a determination yet, but possibly her starting to come in on Thursdays, primarily because the normal course of business is planning board comes in on Thursdays for their monthly meeting. And so she might switch to Thursdays to be able to then just stay for the planning board once we get back into normal business.
Okay, I'd just like to talk to her about the growing disaster on Waterman's Beach Road.
While we're on her report too, the code enforcement officer always reported how many permits were issued and what they were for every month. Is that something that we purposely, or are they on the back?
She typically
Typically
does.
does that.
Oh, okay. Well, so is there a reason she didn't this time, or?
I think that there was just a lot of things going on and she's been having some issues with her email. And so her getting the report this month specifically was just a little more of a hurdle than it has been in other months.
In general, it seems as though there were only 2 reports, I think, if I remember correctly, that went with the agenda, so it seems like everybody's having an issue getting their reports.
Yeah, we didn't get a lot of reports. There's no
Yeah.
assessor agent, there's no.
I reached out to all the department heads, reminded them of that. I did get the warden's report, Amy's ambulance report,
Well, yeah.
Lowe's quick one.
After the fact.
Correct. And then Brian did say that he had emailed you all his report.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't, he said, oh, I forgot to add you on to that email, or I would have put it in.
That's mine, the police. Those are our direct reports. I show them.
I'll say the one thing that, because I try to get these reminders out to the department heads, I went in and put into my calendar a repeating reminder that the first of every month, the one thing apparently my calendar doesn't do is notify me of that thing. So I put it into the calendar to try to like get the emails out, hey, I need your monthly report. I need to figure out how to have that reminder pop up, I guess. And then I also think that us abridging it a week, typically we would have met on the 14th, but that being election day, that cut down on some of the time.
Yep.
So it was just, this is an oddity. This is not typically the department heads are very good about providing their reports time.
Who, okay. What mail program do you use? You must use Outlook, right? Because you're on
Yes,
the-
yep. So and I'm not super tech savvy. I went in and I was like, I don't want to forget this thing. I want to put a repeating event to where the first of every month, this reminder comes up, but it's just, maybe I
On your
overlooked
calendar.
it. It's on the calendar, but I just never checked the calendar. But I figured it would like pop up on the first of every month and be like, hey, don't forget
No,
to.
you have to tell it.
And that's what I didn't do. This is my first month of putting that as a repeating. I gotta tell it to do something else now too.
I think you're right, probably the meeting being a week early was.
Tell it to tell you.
Technology is supposed to help, right?
Okay, so 14th is the election, 21st is the tentative mill rate meeting. August 11th, I didn't have it on my calendar, but that's the second Tuesday.
That's select board meeting, yeah, the 11th.
Do we want to discuss? We can discuss 2 meetings a month next time. Let's
Fine.
want to do it now.
It's late. I'm tired.
Okay.
Let me know when you're done with the scheduling. There's just one thing that I do want to bring up in my report, just so that we're all back on the same page.
Okay.
Is now that time?
Yeah, well, we're up to August 11th.
And were we gonna schedule a meeting with the Valley and Dorsey?
That one, I'm gonna reach out to Andrew Hedrick. That one I'll schedule via email. Okay, so, streetlight stuff. Right after town meeting, reach out to Real Term, ask them about our next steps on this. They said sign the 1-pager, which basically accepts what they say the project's gonna look like. I've already signed that and sent it to them, so I reminded them of that, and then they wanted me to sign the maintenance agreement. I reminded them I'm not doing the maintenance agreement. Paul, who had been on some of those calls, did say you need to be talking to, I believe her name is Nadira. She sent me an email. She's gonna be more responsive than Paul. Paul's all over the place, dealing with different things. So between now and next meeting, Real Term is not gonna start installing things or procuring things. They're doing that in the other municipalities right now. Between now and next meeting, I'm gonna be negotiating with CMP to purchase, so that's one of the things, we still have not yet purchased the devices and the lease space from CMP. I couldn't do anything until the money got approved. So it doesn't hurt us in any sort of timeline stuff. But that's something to anticipate next month, that I would come with some negotiated terms from CMP, and that we would then need to purchase all that stuff from CMP and then tell Real Term, now you can procure things. So basically next month will be reconciling items with CMP for your all signature, actioning out the loan documents to cover purchasing from CMP, plus Real Terms procurement and installation. And so basically it's CMP and loan document stuff. That's the street light update about where we're kind of at right now in that. And I think that because of the other towns being they've been working on this and they had the money appropriated in previous years, we're not in any sort of bad place right now. They still have to do all the other towns before they get to us.
Isn't Thomaston finished?
I think they're almost done. I'm not entirely sure about that, but you still have the bear of Rockland, Camden, Rockport, Union, I think Warren. So Rockland's gonna be a bear. I mean, Rockland has like hundreds of streetlights.
Yeah, well, Peter Lambert is championing this like no tomorrow.
In Thomaston.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, I mean, of all the different things
Can
on
I
the
ask a
report.
question on your report there?
Yes.
I was surprised, I put it away on in front of me, but I thought there was some discussion about setting up a reserve account for maintenance.
Yep.
And I didn't hear any discussion about that at the town meeting when we voted on this article. Maybe I missed it,
Nope,
but I felt like, what?
nope, so we basically,
Come up.
Huh?
This is
That
the
was,
first
that
time.
was a late bloomer
Come on.
idea.
Yeah, well, I felt, I'll be quite honest with you, I felt it was a little misleading that wasn't discussed when 3 days later it comes out in your report, to be perfectly blunt.
yep.
I think it's an idea from Owen though, isn't it?
Yes.
It hasn't anything to boards.
It has,
The reason of which I felt pretty comfortable with this is for the next 8 years, there is very, very little chance that we are putting any resources other than paying the loan back and paying for the kilowatts that we use, because it will be covered under our insurance and it will be covered under warranty. So we have roughly 8 years to set up a reserve account, populate that reserve account with monies enough to, once the warranties have expired, we have a kitty enough set aside to cover anything that's not covered under then insurance and not insurance plus warranty.
But I read the document and the warranties are limited. And not only that, they don't apply the equipment at all. You gotta chase the manufacturer for the manufacturer's warranties on the equipment. I'll be honest with you, I don't know, this may be fait accompli, maybe beyond where, maybe we're beyond the point of no return here. I don't know what has happened, but I'm still not comfortable with us owning the equipment. I'm not convinced it's the right thing to do.
Everything that I have heard from the other towns that have engaged in this and from the manufacturer, yes, these are people that you could say are biased to this. There aren't maintenance costs in the first 5 to 10, call it 8 years. That seems to be pretty consistent with the technology that's being installed. There has not been any sort of, the real unforeseen thing that had bubbled up through all of this, with multiple towns working on this all at the same time, with these projects being complete up in northern Maine, in southern Maine, in other states. The one thing that came up as an unknown was the grounding and the additional cost for installation to not go with CMP's old grandfather. They didn't have to ground the streetlights. We will. We knew about that from Rockland. We asked specifically about that in our costing scheme, but everything that we've been able to gather is that there is basically no maintenance costs.
So we actually have a list of towns that are 8 years deep into this?
No, I mean, the ones up in northern Maine are multiple years deep into this. Southern Maine are, call it 2 to 3 years past the northern Maine push. They seem to go in clusters. It started in southern Maine, South Portland, I think maybe areas of Portland. They did a big push up in northern.
Actually happen all over the country.
Over,
We
it's
were down in
other
DC,
states.
Whole Virginia, Arlington, all over.
Los Angeles has had it for,
Oh, no, I don't have a problem going LED. That's not my, yeah, no, it's not who we deal with. It's the fact that my primary, really only issue is it wise for us to actually own the equipment? I know, for example, I know it's totally unrelated. We used to own all our snowplow equipment and we finally got rid of it and thought it was the best thing in the world. When you're a small town.
Yeah.
I know it's not, that's apples to oranges.
and I hate to, I'm at 10%. So I can either plug in or you all can,
The last thing I have is in 1 minutes.
yes.
I've got several changes to the 9 June minutes.
Yep.
Know where the interest is.
Alright.
Kind of abstain anyway, so I don't.
Yeah, people scorecard, the new hires section. I'm on the June 9th minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've screwed up the names here.
Probably.
You know, the chief presented new hires to the fire department, Wilford Hedren, Connor Knowlton, Anna Flashbauer, and Charles Weedman. And then down below, we've got the chief's recommendation of hiring Flashbauer and Weedman to the fire department. And that one passed, but then further down, you've got Hendren and Wilford, which I believe is the same person. And we don't have Knowlton in there at all. You with me?
I'm just,
It's 4A, paragraph 4A.
yeah, I was looking to see if it was later on, because remember,
It's audio later.
they got there
Moved to a
later.
Yeah, it's the names, it's not there later or earlier.
It's Hendren and Weedman. Either that or Weedman is wrong,
Or it should be Hendren and Knowlton,
or, yeah.
because you've got Flashbart and Weedman up above.
Yep.
And then we had Hendren, and it should be Knowlton, I think, instead of Wilford, because Wilford is Hendren's first name. if I'm looking at this right.
Yep. So I'll do Hendren and Knowlton.
That's what I think it should be. And then turning the page on the back, department head reports. I think the last sentence should be its own bullet. And what I would recommend is words that said, Gaudio asked if the new route on School Street was found to be satisfactory for travel by EMS, period. And then both the fire chief and ambulance director reported that it was. And I'll give you this if you don't have to try and scribble it down.
Yep.
And then page 3, item 11, ambulance department under reports administration. You've got taken out of ambulance checking account. I think we ought to call it ambulance donations account. Isn't that what we mean there? The account that they manage that has the donations in it? Again, you don't have to write this in, I'll give it to you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, back at department heads, on page 2, under library director. She started the appointments as library open by appointments only, and I had down beginning June 1st. And then also further down the page where she says, Direct Ellie would also like to restart exercise classes again, utilizing the town office parking lot. I think we need to add on Fridays. But again, I'll give you those. Those were all changes on that. So with those amendments, I'll move that we approve the minutes of the June 9th as amended and the June 18th select board minutes.
Oh, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Here, let
Abstain.
me give it to you.
Thank you. Oh, and I abstain on that.
Yeah. Got questions, I'll give you,
Thank you.
I think that's pretty good.
And then are you gonna, if you can find that Word document for the community room, that would be great.
I think I gave myself an action on that somewhere. Hope I don't have a liar on it, but it's only there is a program though, not that I've done it, where you can change a PDF back to Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Have
had
you done it?
one, we had one on all of them. Slick.
Yeah, it is stuff.
Hopefully have it.
Yeah.
If it comes under the general Microsoft credentialing.
No, it's Adobe.
Oh. Okay.
Depends on what level or what goodies you have with your Adobe.
And I tried to see if I could like copy, sometimes with PDFs, if it's not like a scanned PDF, if you just convert it, and that might be where one of the hangups was. It looks as though the document was printed out and then scanned into PDF form, which makes it fuzzier.
I'm having the same problem. Makes you feel any better with the thing you gave me on the conservation. 'Cause
Oh.
That's a PDF that I can't play with.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually a copy.
That came from Beverly St. Louis.
Thomason.
I can reach out to Thomason and see if they have that in Word form.
Are you looking for a motion to
Quid
approve?
pro quo.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Don't forget the keys.
Oh, geez, I wonder
Can't
if
make a drive without the car keys.
Okay, some fun.
So Owen, could I get with you someday or I have that list of all the street lights and I couldn't reconcile that with the spreadsheet and I just need some help, kind of like I
Yep.
did tonight.